And he certainly did grab it in Game 1. And with more on tonight's game, here's Gary Green and Paul Romanek.
So you read the newspapers today and yesterday, and you get the feeling, Gary, that Mike Keenan is right ticked off at the way his team played in Game 1. But what the heck? They only lost a one-goal hockey game. I didn't think they were that bad.
Well, what do you expect Mike Keenan to say? I mean, what he's trying to do is prepare his team for tonight's game, so he's got to be able to squeeze them a little bit more. When it comes right down to it, though, he thought they played pretty well, especially their scoring opportunities. Dennis Savard had 5 good scoring opportunities, of which he only capitalized on 1 of them. Steve Larmer, on the other hand, had 4 good scoring opportunities, 2 of them which were right in front of the net all alone, and Steve Larmer, who usually connects as well, didn't finish off. So what Mike Keenan realizes that if they get the same number of scoring opportunities and they can finish off and they're more aggressive in their play to net, especially around the North Stars defense and around the net, that they will win tonight's game.
Keenan was particularly critical of Doug Wilson and of Denny Savard. He said they were trying to do too much on their own, and that is not always the best thing when you're talking about playoff hockey. It has to be a team game.
Well, solo hockey is a byproduct of people trying to do it for the team. It's not really a selfish attitude, although it appears to be that way. Individuals will try to take it upon themselves to rectify the situation or find a solution for the hockey club, and they end up going by themselves and not playing a team game. And at this level in playoff hockey, if you don't play as a unit, a 5- or 6-man unit, you're not going to be very successful, because it's a lot easier to defend you in terms of building a strong defense, which Minnesota has to be given credit for. And you don't get the continuity in your play, and therefore the chances that you have to come from behind.
The team game last year got Mike Keenan and the Hawks all the way to the conference championships. They will try to kick that into gear tonight against the Minnesota North Stars. Jim?
3 other playoff games are underway tonight as well. Paul will keep you up to date from TSN Control in Toronto and all the action. When we come back, the opening face-off, the national anthem from Chicago Stadium. Game 2 of the Norris Division semifinals. Chicago and Minnesota coming up.
In Canada, when someone moves into a place of their own, a traditional gathering is held. It's called a housewarming. Molson Canadian. The clean, cold taste of a genuine Canadian beer. But beer's all about.
Watch this. Hello, my name is James, and I'll be looking after you for this fill-up. If you'll direct your attention to the pumps, we have an excellent Esso Supreme, our best. Esso Regular, of course, but may I suggest something in the middle? New Esso Extra mid-grade unleaded with more octane and cleaning additives than regular. Try our new Esso menu.
Cute. I'll get back to work. Do they take reservations? Thank you.
When Rich Little takes his show on the road, Thrifty is the rental car he puts it all in.
Hey, I save money and I get respect at Thrifty. Thrifty rates are guaranteed worldwide.
For a limited time with a Canadian Airlines flight segment, earn 1,000 Canadian Plus points with any Thrifty rental like this luxurious Chrysler 5th Avenue.
That's the way it is. Thrifty, a lot of car rental company.
For incredibly little.
Call
1-800-4CARS.
Last night, I dreamed of a fabulous snack. Croissant from McCain, to be quite exact. Light, flaky crusts topped with fruits I adore. I could have right away through the microwave door. There was blueberry custard, apple, and more. Cherry almond was there in my dream, I am sure. McCain, I exclaimed, you've answered my call, and I'm not waking up till I finish them all. Fabulous McCain microwave dessert croissant, a snacker's dream come true.
Welcome back to the historic Chicago Stadium, Game 2 of the Norris Division semifinal. Chicago and Minnesota. Here's the national anthem.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for
we excited yet? 18,000 plus people going crackers. John Casey in goal for the Minnesota North Stars. Played an outstanding first game, 4-1-1 during the season against Chicago, and he has a win in the playoffs. At the other end, Craig Millen, and versus Minnesota in the playoffs career, 6 wins, 3 losses, and a pristine 2.69 goals against average. Referees Ron Hogarth on the line, Shane Heyer and Gerard Gauthier. The off-ice officials tonight from Detroit, and we are all set to go. Manson up the middle for Chicago and off the boards. Casey out, just lets it ride around. Lemieux up to forecheck, number 26 for the Hawks, can't come up with it. Just underway. Churla bumped down at center by Lemieux. Puck cleared down into the corner, and Millen will bank it up off the glass. Churla belted back, a little payback from Wayne Van Dorp. Van Dorp trying to get up there to forecheck. He was cut off. Churla leaving it there for Duchesne. Gaetan Duchesne gets it in. Churla trying to go after it. He is manhandled by Jeremy Roenick. Van Dorp. Here comes Keith Brown. Knocked down at the line. Brown waits for his mates to get outside, dumps it in. Hawks making some changes on the go. We played just over 1 minute. Game 2 of the Norris Division semifinals. Barber has it hop away from him. Back of the net. Here's Creighton. Tied up, couldn't get away from Mark Tenorti. They buff it around. Here comes Bellows. Stopped. And back comes Creighton. Presley after it. Takes a chop. Creighton up to step into his man. There's Steve Thomas and Creighton. Thomas is knocked down. And a penalty coming up against the against the Minnesota North Stars, and everybody comes in, and we'll see if we even have offsetting penalties.
It may be on Musil because there was some cross-checking going on out there, but what great hits to start this game off. No one should be surprised. Keenan wanted to make sure that his team came out and played a physical game. On the other hand, Pierre Pagé, who has said throughout the course of the last few days, is that Mike Keenan has a very aggressive hockey club, leading in penalty minutes, and Keenan is quite honestly upset at hearing Pagé say that because he thinks it's somewhat of a plot. Pagé has got a pretty good physical team, and if there are any sparks to be ticked off with, certainly Churla and Basil McRae are capable of that.
Keenan looks a little ticked off in the early going. Keenan took exceptional offense to a comment made by Pagé that, well, you had the Philadelphia Flyers, who were the most penalized team in the NHL while Keenan was there, and it's no surprise that the Hawks are the most penalized team with Keenan here.
Well, you knew that Chicago in this building had to come out and play a strong forechecking game, taking the body. Murphy got his elbow up, and that was right on Wayne Presley's head. Presley had already lost his helmet.
So the bottom line of all of the above, man advantage for the Chicago Blackhawks. The extra 2 minutes going to Brennisak Musil. So Chicago going to work in the power play. They'll try to tee it up to Doug Wilson, who's got the big shot back at the point. Here's Wilson now.
2 minutes for rugby.
Savard
number 6,
looking for Wilson. Gets it over to Larmer. Shoots. Bounces back just to the stick of Savard.
Wayne Presley, 2 minutes for charging at 1:53.
Wilson takes the big lazy turn and moves it up. 1:30 to go in the power play for Chicago. Offside.
That's the problem the Blackhawks had the other night. They just couldn't penetrate the blue line. The North Stars did an excellent job of standing up.
Musil off for cross-checking, Murphy off for roughing, and Presley off for charging as we get a look at the stats. Big difference. 6 for the Blackhawks, 11 for Minnesota. And in game 1, brutal on both counts.
You notice, though, the percentages to the folks sitting at home are still pretty close. That's how much parity there was in the NHL. But all of those opportunities, 17 of them in total.
You said
the other night, and they couldn't score on the power play.
You said the magic word, parity. Creighton takes the hit, but gets it in. Savard whirling around. Larmer back there. Here's Savard. Wilson. Back to Savard. Has a little trouble with the bounce down there. Creighton now in the corner. 1:05 to go on the power play. Lots of traffic in front. Big Adam Creighton jostling in there. Here's Wilson. Shoots! Off the boards. Wilson hustling up after it. Murray trying to bank it around. Larmer's knocked down. Savard. Wilson. Wilson again. Savard shoots. Casey the stop. Here's Creighton. Casey's there.
Well, that's the area that Keenan is trying to get his team to improve upon in tonight's game, is right around Casey. You can see Creighton, who had that big reach available to him. The puck was there. He just couldn't get control of the puck. The shots are going to come from the point tonight. They're going to have some deflections. And a big, strong guy like Adam Creighton has got to somehow find that route. But John Casey can expect lots of shots early. We're talking about the power play percentages. Scoring one each and the number of chances that these two teams had on the power play in game number one is just not enough for either of the coaches. But yet when we come into playoff hockey, you know that the power play percentages are going to drop and the penalty killing percentages are going to rise. There seems to be more intensity, more work put on to penalty killing. And I guess it comes down to that they're playing each game like it is honestly their last.
You talked about parity. This is the first time since they've had the current NHL divisional alignment that the Norris division has had a better than 500 record against the rest of the NHL. Only one team with over 100 points this year. Casey, great stop. 30 seconds left in the Hawks power play. Murray. Off the boards. And Roenick taking the crunch, and the net comes off the pegs.
The North Stars were extremely aggressive in front of John Casey in game number one. Their defense were laying out the bodies, and they were taking away the better scoring opportunities from the Blackhawks. That wasn't a bad one. A shot from the high slot, but again, no second and third opportunities, and that's what the North Stars were successful at doing in game one, taking away those second and third chances, and Casey took care of the first. We can expect lots of physical play. Giles isn't afraid to run the body pretty good on Roenick. Roenick wasn't all that pleased, Paul, at his amount of ice time the other night. He expressed it.
Well, he's out there at center now with Savard and Thomas for the remainder of this power play. Roenick up along the boards, back to Manson, back to Savard. 10 seconds left in the power play. And Broughton will pick it up. And Neil Broughton golfing it all the way down the ice. That will about do it for the first Chicago power play. Musil comes back on. Teams at even strength. 16:04 to go first period. No score. Chicago and Minnesota, game 2 of the Norris semifinals. Minnesota leading 1-0. Oh! Taking the body. Broughton. All the way back. Wilkinson shoots off a skate. Back to the line. Puck punched in towards the net. Tenorti trying to land it on goal. Now the North Stars turning the tables a little bit. And they'll get a face-off down in the offensive zone for their trouble. 15:32 to go in the first period. 0-0.
Jocelyn Lemieux has been handing out the body pretty good.
Well, here's Jim Van Horn.
Thank you, Paul. Some interesting news out of the NHL offices today regarding the late game brawl between the New York Islanders and the New York Rangers last night. This was a scene with only 2 seconds left to play in the game. Al Arbour sent out Mick Vukota and Ken Baumgartner. That's number 24 in the blue, circulating just prior to the drop of the puck. He then goes right after Chris King. Mick Vukota then attacked Jeff Blomberg from the New York Rangers and laid a whipping on him. As a result of this brawl at the end of the game, the Islanders have been fined $25,000. Al Arbour, the head coach, has been fined $5,000. Mick Vukota has been suspended for 10 games, and Ken Baumgartner has been suspended for the next game. Some interesting results of last night's brawl.
How often do you see Al Arbor lose it like that?
Well, it was an ugly scene. There was no question about that. John Ziegler reacted very quickly. He was there at the game.
Zero here. Puck cleared up, cross ice, fired in by Troy Murray. Up off the boards, Lemieux. In deep, overskates it. North Stars will regroup and come out. Don Barber. Kicked away by Millen off the glass. Bob Murray up around the boards. Murphy back there for Minnesota. Lots of room. Hawks making a change. Here's Tenorti. Offside.
The North Stars aren't fast at foot. And Pierre Paget knows that, but they're going to try to gain every opportunity they possibly can. Tenorti, who most teams like to get on when he's in his own end zone, has been doing a little bit of rushing up in the neutral ice area.
And the Minnesota North Stars, with I don't think quite as much scoring depth as the Chicago Blackhawks once you get past the frontline players.
Well, you're looking at 6 20-goal men for the North Stars. Chicago have got a little bit better balanced offense with 8 20-goal scorers.
Teams pretty evenly matched defensively, though. The final goals against average .01 apart from one another. Here's Presley, shoots right through the crease, up around. Murray knocks it down to Thomas. He's sandwiched in front. Presley shoots, big stop. Delayed penalty coming up on Minnesota. And it's going to be a hooking call. So the Hawks will cue it up once again for the power play. And the Chicago Blackhawks will get their second power play opportunity of the game.
Presley had a great opportunity to score. Churla puts the hook on him right there. That's when Churla got the penalty, and Presley got the scoring opportunity.
John Casey has been there a couple of times in the early going of this game, as he was the other night.
What you've got to watch for here, the Blackhawks have got to almost score on one of these power plays quickly. Otherwise, these fans who are all for them can turn very quickly against them.
Larmer after it, trying to get it back for Creighton. Larmer falls to the ice. Neil Broughton moves it out. Here comes Mark Tenorti. Shoots. Wilson gets back there to break it up. Tenorti was actually in a 2-on-1, elected to shoot it. Hawks come back out. Stopped up at the blue line, and you called it, the fans starting to get down on these Blackhawks.
I tried to get the great penalty killer, the former great penalty killer, Doug Jarvis, the assistant coach here, to tell me what they're doing differently.
Here's Bellow stealing it with a shot. Millen handles that.
He didn't want to commit, though. But it's been fairly noticeable that the North Stars have been far more aggressive in the neutral zone instead of the offensive zone.
Wilson. Savard shoots. Casey well out. He had the angle on him. Just nowhere for Savard to put it. 55 seconds left in the Chicago power play.
Keenan wants the Blackhawks to be able to get down in deep and set up. That's wishful thinking right now.
Presley up after him. Musil gets there first, tries to work it up and out. And Gavin just clears it down for the North Stars. Only 34 seconds left in the power play for Chicago. Dave Manson. Up and in. Roenick given a bump. Giles up around the boards. Delayed penalty coming up. It's going to be against Chicago. North Stars break down. Short-handed. Gavin. Wheels it in. Broughton in front. He was tied up. The arm still up in the air. Delayed penalty on Chicago. Broughton back of the net. And the Minnesota North Stars will get a chance in the power play. Chicago couldn't get much going. Let's see what's going on elsewhere tonight.
The story is from St. Louis, where the Leafs are starting flatter than they did in game number 1. St. Louis with 9 shots on goal in the first 10 minutes, and here is the 10th shot on goal. Brett Hull with his second goal of the series. St. Louis jumps to an early 1-0 lead over Toronto.
Well, you get off to that slow start like the Leafs did the other night and like they are tonight, you can get buried in the playoffs.
Well, you've got to come prepared to play right from the drop of the puck. Right now, the Minnesota North Stars with their power play opportunity. Wayne Presley goes to the penalty box.
Modano at center with Ulf Dallin and Brian Bellows on the wings. That's how the forward line for the Minnesota North Stars will set up in the first part of the power play. And they have Aaron Broughton back in the blue line. Neil Broughton, of course, normally is center. They'll play him back at the left point. Murphy over on the right point.
Wayne Presley was scratched from the lineup in game number 1. He's back in tonight. Michel Goulet, who only got about 5 minutes of ice time, is back on the bench tonight.
Neil Broughton works it in.
Or I should say the press box.
Dallin back of the net is bumped. Bellows lurking in the weeds, waiting for it to pop loose. Now he's got it. Back to Broughton. Just bulldozing his way through. Murphy. Good job to keep it in. Modano into Bellows. Modano ready to one-time it. Boy, he'd like to have that chance again.
Keith Brown may have saved a goal. He helped Greg Millen, who was caught over to his right. When Modano got possession of that puck, he knew he had to let it go quickly in order to catch Millen. Watch the stick of Keith Brown. I think, though, however, folks, that was more luck than it was skill. Brown put his stick down there, and at that point in time, you say a little prayer.
Oh, look what hit my stick. 1:28 to go on the power play for Minnesota. 11:48 to go in the first period. 0-0, the Hawks and the North Stars. I'm Paul Romanuk with Gary Green and Jim Van Horn. Michael Landsberg watching all the other games for you tonight. It's got to be just perfect, boys. Here's Murphy. To Broughton, back to Murphy. Bellows, Modano, there's that play again. This time Modano couldn't one-time it. Let's see if it works this time. Broughton. Across to Murphy this time, not Modano. Trying to work it in and no go. 1 minute left in the power play for the North Stars. Bellows comes in with Dallin. Dallin back of the net, cuts in front, a jam up. Here's Bellows, scores! Brian Bellows, who was the killer in game 1, gets the Stars started.
Bellows just keeps on rolling. In March and April, he was the player of the month in the NHL. He was definitely the player for the North Stars in game 1, and he gets it started again tonight. Dolan did an excellent job of controlling that puck, didn't he? I mean, he was able to keep possession of it. Now he goes deep with it. Now watch, he just wards off Savard's stick, tries to cut in front. 2 Blackhawks go to Dolan. Nobody's on Bellows.
They try to set play a couple of times with a quick pass from the left over to Modano, but Bellows comes through, cleaning up from a scramble in front of the net.
Here's a player, Brian Bellows, who a lot of folks thought would be in a different uniform than that of the North Stars over the last few years.
I think Brian Bellows might have been one of the people who thought that, maybe even wanted it at one time. Here's Secord. Maybe out there to shake things up for the Blackhawks. Gagne slips the check. And they're throwing it around again. Secord bumped. He and Gavin exchange elbows. Here comes Savard. Up ahead, Murray with a shot. That's blocked. Musil sliding across to save the day. Here's Secord. Tried to feed Thomas. He's hooked up in the play by Aaron Broughton. Secord belting his man, got the elbow up a little high, and he is going to head off. And don't look now, but a promising start for Chicago evaporating.
Blackhawk penalty number 20 out.
Around here, they know my name. Time to talk, time to say hello. Around here, we're all in the game. Hometown heroes, let them out, let them go. And the beer around here is only great taste, my friend. You know our beer around here is only. Around here, our beer is only.
Big Al Secord off for elbowing. You can see that coming. He was getting just a little rambunctious up there.
Bad timing, though. He got his elbow up right into Gagner's head. But now the North Stars, who have had the momentum, are going to get another opportunity to maintain that momentum and maybe do a little better than that.
Oh, I thought Chicago had the momentum the first little while. They had those power play opportunities, squandered those. And boy, it's turned. Here's Bellows. Turning into the corner. Modano. Back to Murphy. Shoots. Up around the boards. Here comes Troy Murray. Tried to bounce it across there for Jocelyn Lemieux, but that's broken up. Bellows in over the blue line offside on Minnesota.
Modano was a little bit too anxious. He was way up in front. Bellows had possession of the puck on the right wing side.
And Bellows coming off of the best season of his NHL career. 55 goals, led all left wingers in the NHL, and I believe he only had like 3 points less than Luc Robitaille, and that is quite a class to be in.
Well, the last month of the season, the North Stars surprised a lot of people in the NHL.
Minnesota batting 1,000 on the power play so far in this game, and Chicago 0 for 2, and that so far is the story.
It frustrates the Blackhawks, no doubt, that they were unable to score in their first 2 power play opportunities. They know how important it is to score in this building, or any building, for that matter of fact, first in the game.
Barber dropping it off. Aaron Broughton. Into Don Barber. Back to Broughton. Off his skate. And you know the Hawks are going to pounce on that. Larmer. Larmer still shoots. Casey to stop. And Aaron Broughton will leave it there. Gagner slips the noose and comes in. Gagner to Chambers. Waits. Scores. And the walls came tumbling down. Mike Keenan knows it.
Well, Bob Murray made a bad mistake. He was inserted into the lineup tonight to add a little bit of offense, but he shouldn't have been doing it right here. When the North Stars had a 3-on-2, Murray was one of the 2 defensemen that was back. That created a 3-on-1. Murray took a swat at Gagner, didn't get all of him. And the North Stars break out 3-on-1. Chambers made a beautiful play. What he did there was that he used Aaron Broughton as the decoy, which confused Millen a bit. Millen spread the legs just enough for Chambers to find the room in between.
That's another power play goal. Minnesota's power play is 2 for 2, and they are up 2-0. That comes at 10:41.
You know, we said in game number 1 that power play was going to be the difference in determining this series.
Did you say that?
No, I think Huey said it.
And more penalties, a hooking call now. And the Blackhawks take aim and shoot themselves in the foot again. Adam Creighton heading off.
Mike Keenan and the word discipline right now that's running through his head is coming to life. Just a needless penalty. As Adam Creighton goes to the penalty box, and again the North Stars, who have had lots of confidence tonight on their power play, get another chance with a face-off, which I believe is going to be in the Blackhawks end zone.
10 seconds after the North Stars score a power play goal, they will get set to go to work again on the man advantage. And Mike Keenan just has to
to be seething. Those surly eyes tell it all.
Would melt ice with that stare.
Keenan, on the other hand, isn't one to really panic in this situation. It's not a 3 out of 5 series anymore. It's 4 out of 7, but he knows his team's got to get going.
Modano, Bellows, and Dallin up front. Here's Bellows to Murphy, shooting. It was almost 3-0. Dallin to Neil Broughton to Bellows. Watch Modano parked out in front. Dallin tried to jam it in that time. Here's Neil Broughton. Up to Bellows. He's checked. Bulldozing in. Lemieux. Knocked down. That's got to rise. Here's Lemieux again. North Stars with 1:12 to go in their man advantage. They lead 2-0, 8:18 to play first period. I'm Paul Romanek with Gary Green and Jim Van Horn from the stadium in Chicago. Churla centers it, they score! Neil Broughton. And the North Stars 3 for 3 on the power play.
You can hardly blame Greg Millen for most of these goals. Watch as Broughton initially sets it up in the neutral ice. Now after this, then Broughton will just go to the net. But who goes with Broughton? Not a soul. When he gets possession of that puck, he just rings it right in the corner on Millen's stick side. Wilson tried to take his man out. He took the body out, but Ulf Dahlin gets possession of the puck. Look where Manson is stationed. Why he was way back there instead of playing the pass doesn't make a lot of sense.
And this place, which was incredibly loud about a half an hour ago, and the hook comes out, and I think this is more a reflection of trying to shake things up than on Greg Millen's goaltending. Yeah, Ed Belfour comes in.
Exactly. I don't think that Mike Keenan's going to be blaming Millen too much on this, but you've got to do something. You've got very few little games that you can play right now as a coach behind the bench. Strategy.
Well, Ed Belfour spending most of this year with the Canadian national team with Dave King. Played in 33 games, had a goals against average just over 3. Was 13, 12, and 6, but do with that what you may, because playing with the national team is not the same as playing in the NHL.
Ed Belfour thought he was going to be heading after the Atlantic Cup overseas with Canada's national team, and instead he found himself in a Blackhawk uniform.
Which is fine by him, no doubt, although I'm sure he can think of better situations to walk into.
I doubt whether he was expecting to get into this series, let alone tonight's game.
Presley steps in, shoots. Creighton buzzing through there, couldn't control the rebound. Thomas stopped by Casey. The Hawks come in waves. Try to get some offense rolling. Trying to get back into it. They're down 3-0. 7:35 to play in the first.
You know, they just had 3 men in deep, though. They're really pressing.
You've got to be. Presley trying to bank it out. Tenorti up there knocks it down into the corner. McRae knocked down, couldn't get it in front. Presley back out. Shoots it in. The Hawks make some changes on the go. Wilkinson to Churla. McRae steps in, just dishes it off towards the net. Ed Belfour makes the stop. He hadn't even been in goal, and he gets the sarcastic cheer from the fans. And back behind the play, a hooking penalty, and it's going to go against the Minnesota North Stars. Dave Gagne will head off, so Chicago maybe can get a foot back in the door.
If you hang out with Canada's top builders, you'll see they rely on Makita high-torque tools. Corded or cordless tools, Makita's got the torque to power its way through anything. And And with over 100 service centers, you'll never get caught with your tools down. Skyscraper or treehouse, Makita makes it easy. Makita, more power to you.
Ed Belfour in goal for the Chicago Blackhawks, relieving the beleaguered and no doubt embittered Greg Millen at this point. Dave Gagne off for the Minnesota North Stars. He goes off for hooking, and Chicago with a chance in the power play, a power play that is 0 for 2 so far in this game. Gary, Minnesota's is 3 for 3, and there's your story.
Well, there's the penalty. Just the rear end of it anyway. It does give the Blackhawks a chance to get this power play working. And boy, they better snap one here.
Savard, Gilbert, and Larmer up front for Chicago. Puck stolen by Neil Bratton. And he'll just kill it off. Back to Sean Chambers.
You hear the fans right now? This is where the great Chicago Blackhawk fans can all of a sudden hurt your hockey club right in your own building. Their cheers and boos intimidate their own team as much as their cheers can help their own team.
A minute 30 to go in the Chicago power play. Doug Wilson. Over to Bob Murray. Back to Doug Wilson. Finally they come in. Savard couldn't control it. Larmer in front, tried to convert on the pass from Greg Gilbert, and nothing is bouncing for Chicago.
Great coverage on Larmer in the slot.
Nothing. Presley tries to get it in, and that stopped. 1 minute left in the Hawks power play. They trail Minnesota 3-0, 5:45 to go first period. Manson to Thomas. Here's Manson. Shoots, scores!
Finally. There's the shot. Now watch the deflection. Presley in front of the net. Just watch Presley. Watch where he gets his stick after Manson takes the shot. I didn't expect Casey to stop that one. It was deflected, first of all, by his own player, out by Manson. And then it was deflected by the stick of Wayne Presley.
And just maybe, the Gorillas starting to slide off the Blackhawks' back. Presley with a power play goal. Maybe they can get this great stadium crowd back on their side. I have a feeling they'll turn court pretty quick.
No, they've turned very quickly. They're back at Chicago's side. No question about that.
See all the banners being slowly unfurled again in the crowd. 5:10 to play first period. 3-1 Minnesota leading. All three of Minnesota's goals in the power play. Chicago's 2. Here's Thomas. Shoots! That's just wide. Roenick was parked in front.
That was a 4-on-2 the Blackhawks had. The North Stars were trying to press too much in the neutral ice.
Wilkinson coming out for Minnesota. Cut down at the blue line. Roenick. Thomas slips the noose and comes away. Here's Thomas. Tried to tuck it in front to Presley. Thomas crunching into his man. Gagne, slick pass. Brings it in with Gavin. He's dumped. Presley. Almost led Conroy to his buzzing up on the left wing. Gavin. Gagne snaps it right through the slot. Useal with a bullet. And play is stopped.
Blackhawks goal is
lots of jostling down in front of the Chicago net and things picking up for the Hawks.
We
We've shared good times together as the days gave way to years. My friends and me, my family, laughter and the tears. We live life like we mean it. That's always been our call. It says it all.
Back to St. Louis. The Leafs were only trailing at 1-0, but boy, did they ever need something, and they get it here. Mark Osborne, short-handed, picks one out of the air, and he moves in cleanly on Joseph. Watch the defender slide across, so he's got to snap one. Joseph gives him lots of room. The Maple Leafs have come back to tie the Blues at 1 in the first.
Well, here it's 3-1, Michael, with 4:01 to go in the first period, and offsetting minor penalties going to Trent Yanni of the Blackhawks, and there's Aaron Broughton of the North Stars in to serve his penance.
2 minutes for high sticking. Blackhawks of the Yanni, 2 minutes for roughing.
Shots 9-7 right now for Chicago, but Minnesota leading at 3-1. Every goal in this game has come on the power play. Ed Belfour in goal for Chicago, on in relief of Greg Miller. Van Dorp tied up by Chambers. Denny Savard back to pick it up to Wilson. Savard cruising up after it. Tenorti trying to fire it out. Van Dorp like a truck. Here's Chambers. Van Dorp closing in. There's the hit. Wilson keeps it in. Savard trying to one-time it. Savard around the boards to Brown. Wilson shoots. And the North Stars dodge the bullet. Modano clears it in. That just bounces underneath the blocker of Belfour.
Boy, the Blackhawks were once again really pressing. 4 men in deep.
2:50 to play first period. 3-1 Minnesota leading. Bellows. Knocked off the puck by Jeremy Roenick. Here's Presley back in. Drops it off. Thomas with a shot that was blocked. The Hawks just flying. Giles and Presley battling. Nip and tuck back of the goal. Giles comes away with it. Kirk Giles dumps it in. 2:15 to play first period. 3-1 Minnesota leading Chicago. Here's Steve Thomas for the Hawks. Trying to lead it in there with Jocelyn Lemieux. He was led a little bit too much. Neil Brock stopped. Lemieux for Gilbert. Backhands it wide. Casey clears it. Don Barber to Neil Broughton. The Hawks like a blanket. And they managed to smother the North Stars in their own zone with 1:50 to go in the first period, and this game has just gone back and forth.
Well, Chicago have really been applying the pressure in these last few minutes, which must make Mike Keenan feel good, make him feel better if they can capitalize on scoring opportunities like this one. Presley over to Thomas. Now watch the save that Neil Wilkinson makes. He goes down, blocks the shot on Steve Thomas, who thought that he knew where he could find the room behind John Casey.
Of note on that list, Dirk Graham with a bruised left knee, and Jacques Cloutier with a strained left knee. And Michel Goulet falling into disfavor a little bit.
Mike Keenan didn't think that Michel Goulet worked hard enough, even though he was on the ice for about 5 minutes last night. And he's not really down on Goulet. He just thinks that he needs more opportunity to understand what Mike Keenan expects as far as commitment when it comes to a game.
1:50 to go in the first period. Larry Murphy slides it across. Offside. Manson tried to rush it in. 1:39 to go first period. Manson, one of those guys who obviously doesn't score a lot. He's never scored in 25 career playoff games, but a tough customer. Perry Berezan has a broken nose. He didn't make the trip even for Minnesota. Kurt Frazier, who you don't even see on the list, out for the rest of the year, reconstructive surgery on his knee. Dallin in over the blue line. Duchesne and Dallin. Manson will roll it up. Here's Larmer. Roenick. Almost with the great shift around Duchesne. Presley up there with a backhander, and Casey handled that no problem. Manson pitching up. Bounces off of Tenorti, but the puck is cleared. Keith Brown gets it outside the line. Duchesne clears it back in. Less than a minute to go in the period. And over by the benches, Basil McRae took exception to a shot that he took out in the ice. And he had trouble getting off the ice.
Well, these benches are so close. Watch how it starts. McRae's coming to the bench, but do you think that he tries to avoid putting the shoulder into a Blackhawk player? Not a chance. And would we expect Basil McRae to do that? Not a chance. He led the NHL in penalties this year, 351 minutes, but yet, as the season was wearing down, he had 6 goals in the last 14 games.
52 seconds to go in a wild and woolly first period. Looked like the North Stars were going to blow the Blackhawks right into their own rink with 3 consecutive power play goals in the span of about 4 minutes. But Chicago tipping the tables back the other way the last 5 minutes or so. See what happens here with penalties. Ron Hogarth explaining everything. That all started. McRae took a run at, I believe, Presley back down in the Chicago zone behind the play, and they met up again heading towards the bench and renewed acquaintances.
Well, the Hawks are going to come out of it with a power play opportunity, and they've got 52 seconds remaining in this period to do something with it. If they don't,
well, McRae gets interference and high sticking, 2 each. Jeremy Roenick just gets 2 for high sticking, so the Chicago Blackhawks with a late period power play. Lemieux, Presley, and Thomas up front for Chicago. .40 seconds to go in the period. The power play will carry over into the second period, providing the Hawks don't pop one here with 35 seconds to go. Brown. Casey out there to block it up. And another penalty coming up, and it's going to go against Chicago. And what did I say about that power play carrying over?
Blackhawk penalty number 32, Steve Thomas.
So for not the first time in this game, the Blackhawks take a bad penalty.
Blackhawk penalty, Thomas.
There's Thomas way up in the slot. That's where he picks up his penalty, just the top of your screen. Mike Keenan shaking his head. You know, if the Blackhawks could have scored on that power play opportunity, it would have made a major difference to the tone of Mike Keenan's in-between periods speech. Right now, you can bet that it's going to focus on discipline.
Thomas took the bad penalty. Al Secor took a bad penalty earlier in the period that cost the Chicago Blackhawks. Every penalty has cost the Chicago Blackhawks in this game. Minnesota 3 for 3 on the man advantage. 26 seconds to go in the first period. A 3-1 hockey game. Minnesota leading the Chicago Blackhawks. Teams at even strength. Here's Murphy back at the line. Hit the linesman. Manson. All the way across. Puck fired low and wide by Troy Murray. Broke his stick. He wheels all the way back to the bench to get a fresh one. Gagne works it out at center. 3 seconds left in the period. Here's Murphy, and that'll do it.
Well, the linesmen were quick to get in between the players, not wanting to see any anything happen. But a good effort by the North Stars. They owned that first period when it came to the power play.
A back and forth first period. Here's Jim Van Horn.
Thank you, Paul. The best thing for the Chicago Blackhawks on the ice in that first period was Ed Belfour's helmet. Nothing else seemed to work. They played 14 minutes of very embarrassing hockey. That goal seemed to give them a bit of a lift, but Minnesota has reason to smile. They're leading 3-1 after the first period of play. We will update the rest of the playoff action from TSN Control in Toronto with Michael Landsberg. Our NHL playoff coverage continues after this.
The 1990 Pontiac four-door Grand Prix.
So it's really hard to understand how a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs could be so flat. It almost seemed to not care about a playoff game. The Maple Leafs were that way against the St. Louis Blues in game number 1. They lost it by a score of 4-2. And in game number 2, same story, if not for the great goaltending of Alan Bester. This one would have been over almost before it was over. Brett Hull, of course, is the man that the Maple Leafs know they have to stop. And he came out and had 2 or 3 shots on goal right away, but Bester is playing fantastic. I mean, he is right on his game. Nice save right out in front of the net. He made a number of big saves, but eventually goaltending can only take you so far. Look at Hull tee this one up. Boom! He rips one. That made it a 1-0 hockey game. Osborne scored to make it a 1-1 game, but watch here. Do the Blues go ahead? The official says no. It went off the skate of Zezel and then appeared to go off his stick, but the official said no, so this game remains tied at 1 in the first period of play between the Maple Leafs and the St. Louis Blues. And of course, the Blues lead that series 1-0. We'll keep you posted on all of the action in the NHL. The others just getting underway in about 7 minutes' time. And as a matter of fact, we'll go live to Calgary for a comment there. Right now, we'll take a break and throw a trivia question at you. And we ask you this. It centers on the Chicago Blackhawks team record for most career playoff points. We'll give you a hint. It's not Dave Manson. We'll tell you who it was.
Playing game number 1, Wayne Presley was inserted by Mike Keenan. Good move by Keenan. Presley was a definite force in that first period of play, and he had 3 shots on net as well to equal that of Bellows.
Ed Belfour on in relief of Greg Millen. Millen got the hook after those 3 Minnesota power play goals over a span of about 4 minutes. Teams start this period at even strength. And a bit of strength displayed back of the net as Musil was given the crunch. Manson. Neil Broughton was in offside. Yanni. Into the corner. Presley tied up. Bellows back there to pick it up. Manson at the line. Slick move to keep it in, but couldn't work it any further. Back in front of the net. Lots of jolting going on in front of John Casey. Chambers. In 15 seconds, Minnesota will have itself a brief power play. A duration of about 24 seconds. Presley steps in for the Hawks to Lemieux. Lemieux and Murphy. Gagne back there works it up. Power play now for Minnesota for the next 26 seconds. And Mario Tyre is out there, number 47. Heads to the bench as Chambers carries it in. Back for Bellows. Shoots! That's knocked away. Belfour making the stop. Gagne. Into Bellows. 3 seconds left in power play. Murphy shoots. That was blocked. Chambers. Tipped in front of the net just wide. Gavin was parked there and just directed it wide of the corner. Penalized players back on. Teams at even strength. Here's Thomas. Great stop. Scored!
Because Casey gave up the rebound, something he hasn't done much of in the 2 games. And the North Stars defense, Larry Murphy in particular, let Gilbert get right by him. Left winger
Greg Gilbert streaking towards the net, gobbling up Thomas's rebound. And Pierre Paget does what he did in game 1. He calls a timeout just to settle down this crowd and his team. Paget is waiting for this place to calm down. He may have to wait just a little while.
Well, remember, though, after Paget did that in game number 1, the North Stars came right back and scored quickly and took the life right out of this crowd. I'm sure Mike Keenan has reminded his team of that. Paget was drawing on some experience from game number 1 when he's made that move.
And Pierre Paget hoping that it will work again. Gilbert with the goal at 1:49, and he has lit a fire under this crowd. 3-2, Minnesota still leading. Here's Dave Manson. Here comes Thomas with Roenick. Thomas hooked up on the play by Modano. And the Hawks with a power play chance. Steve Thomas sets up one goal and then draws the penalty. He's been effective.
Watch this. Hello, my name is James, and I'll be looking after you for this fill-up. If you'll direct your attention to the pumps, we have an excellent Esso Supreme, our best. Esso Regular, of course, but may I suggest something in the middle? New Esso Extra mid-grade unleaded with more octane and cleaning additives than regular.
Try our new Esso menu.
Cute. I'll get back to work. Do they take reservations?
We are on the road and in New York City tomorrow. Round number 2 of the Battle of New York, the Rangers and the Islanders. 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Note the later than usual start time because of the circus at Madison Square Garden. And then off to Minnesota on Sunday at 8:30 Eastern. And as usual, we'll be manning the control center back in Toronto, keeping our eye on all the other playoff action. This is the place to be. Blackhawks working in the power play, and only for 11 seconds.
They've got to stay away from those bad retaliation penalties when they've got the power play opportunity. That's twice now in this game that the Blackhawks have nullified their own power play by taking bad penalties. This time, Troy Murray. Watch him.
Blackhawks
behind the net.
Troy Murray, 2 minutes for high sticking.
He just got a stick up, threw a pretty good shoulder along with that, right into the North Star player, and then takes away the Chicago Blackhawks' opportunity.
Gary, that's twice they've nullified a power play, and then there was the time Secor took the penalty when he killed some momentum that the Hawks had rolling.
Well, the Blackhawks have come out in this second period load for bear. They knew exactly what they had to do, and I'm sure Mike Keenan has something to do with that.
Trying to shoot the Stars down early. Greg Gilbert with a goal at 1:49. Did just that. Teams at even strength. Here's Steve Conroy. Kirk Giles has trouble. Conroy swooping in there. Now he's dumped for his trouble. Gagne to Bellows. Back for Giles. Gilbert picks his pocket and spanks the puck down the ice.
Greg Gilbert's adrenaline level has increased twofold coming into the second period.
He had rockets on his skate going for that Steve Thomas rebound that resulted in the goal just a minute 49 into the period. It is 3-2 here. Let's check out some other action with Michael Landsberg.
The action we're checking out is in Calgary. It's the Flames and the Los Angeles Kings, and it didn't take long for Flames fans to get turned on. Gilmore centers it, then picks up the rebound and bangs it home. He beats Kelly Rudy, something the Flames had a lot of trouble doing. It's 1-0 very early in the first.
And we are very early in the second here, Michael. And Minnesota leading Chicago by a score of 3-2. I'm Paul Romanek with Gary Green and Jim Van Horn. Michael Landsberg back at our TSN Control Center watching all the other playoff action. Great to have you with us from the historic stadium in Chicago. I'd never been here before, and it is just an incredible experience when this place erupts during the national anthem.
Well, I know you'll want to come back.
Name the time. Puck fired in. Gavin battling in front, trying to tip it past Ed Belfour. That is Ed Belfour in goal for Chicago. If you joined us late, Greg Millen started. He was given the big hook after he'd given up 3 goals. Here's Roenick, badgering into the corner. Knocked down once and twice, and that is going to draw a cross-checking penalty. Larry Murphy caught red-handed, or red-sticked, if you will.
Murphy's been a great offensive defenseman for the North Stars. The reason why I think Belfour was put into the net was not just to change things around, change the momentum, but what Mike Keenan would have been thinking about was the fact that with Greg Millen in the net, the North Stars know that they've got to shoot a great deal, but likewise, the Chicago Blackhawks realize that Millen's a great goaltender, and sometimes they were leaning too much and waiting too much for Greg Millen to make that big save. As soon as Keenan puts Belfour in the net, the players lose a little bit of confidence in their goaltender. That's nothing to take away from Belfour, but as a result, they try a little bit harder to keep the puck into the North Stars' end zone. Roenick has been pleading for a little bit more ice time through the papers, and he's got it tonight. He's been on the hustle as well.
It's a 4-on-3 for Chicago. Tenorti for Minnesota trying to eat the puck. Roenick steals it. Here's Wilson. Over to Murray. Back to Wilson. In front, Larmer's there. Scores!
To Murray, to Roenick. Well executed. Larmer uses his feet. It's a battle for it. Chambers can't get it. Murray does. And Roenick's on his forehand side.
This place is going crazy. The Hawks are back into it. It's 3-3.
Hey, folks, a brand new hockey game, and don't these fans know it?
Bellows trying to plug up the dam. Up ahead to Gagne. Here comes Lemieux. Jumped up and hit Wilkinson. He took that in the choppers, and he is going to take a look towards the bench.
Blackhawks goal is first in the playoffs, scored by number 27, Jeremy Roenick. Assisted by number 6, Bob Murray, and number 28, Steve Larmer. 3:53. Blackhawks goal scored by Roenick, assisted by Bob Murray and Larmer at 3:53.
Roenick wanted more ice time. He got it. And he tied this game up.
There is nothing that sends chills up your spine quite as much if you're a player, I'm sure, as sitting down on that bench while 19,000 people go wild in the background. I'm just guessing. I've never experienced. But it's incredible from up here.
Paul, you can just sit up here and pretend they're cheering for you. Feel it? Doesn't it feel great?
Well, when you stand up in the soapbox and start waving to them, I get worried. Here's Steve Thomas for Chicago. Steve Conroy up around the boards. Presley moving in. Conroy. Murphy stopped up at the line by Brown. Now here's Churla. And that's going to cost the Hawks. Basil McRae was pulled down as he was going for the net, and nobody's going to get away with that. And the gang will gather around and straighten things out. You know the Hawks are back. We're tied at 3.
You gotta be tough to be a goalie. People are always taking shots at you. That's why goalies like us like to hang out with. There's plenty of friendly people, you know. Hi, Eddie. John. Good to see you. Jilly, how you doing?
Hey, John.
Hey, John. And a goalie's favorite beer, Miller Lite. Hiya, Pierre.
How's it going, John?
In fact, no beer tastes better than a Miller Lite when you're surrounded by a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah.
Hey, guys! Who's that? Who's he? Tony! Tony Esposito!
Miller Lite. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
What a fabulous start to the Oilers and Jets game. Back and forth they've gone. Peter Klima had a breakaway. He did not score. Now it's Brent Ashton on a breakaway. And look where he puts it. Over the shoulder of Bill Ranford, underneath the crossbar. The Jets lead the series 1-0 and lead this game 1-0 as well.
Boy, the Jets really coming on.
There's
so
the
Hawks.
Unfortunately, right now for the Hawks, they're going to be going to the penalty box after that play.
And Pierre Paget is wide-eyed as most of his players.
Paget, by the way, has been given permission by Jack Ferreira, the general manager of the Minnesota North Stars, after the season is over, to have discussion with the Quebec Nordiques for the general manager's position that they have been interviewing a number of people for. Jack Ferreira said that he would not hold back the opportunity for Pierre Paget to better himself.
A power play chance for the Minnesota North Stars. Troy Murray on.
Penalty number 10, Gatana Duchesne, 2 minutes for unsportsmanlike conduct. Blackhawk penalties, number 17.
And also a couple of offsetting minor penalties.
Conduct. And number 19, Troy Murray, 2 minutes for interference.
Minnesota, every goal in this game on the power play.
Minnesota penalty Duchesne.
Murray gets an interference penalty. Duchesne and Presley get offsetting penalties for unsportsmanlike conduct.
All at the 5-minute mark.
So the bottom line is a power play chance for the Minnesota North Stars. Larmer given a bump by Casey, and that is going to do it for the Minnesota power play. Let's see what's going on elsewhere.
I don't know what Terry Cripps said to Doug Gilmour and Joey Mullen after the first game of the series, but he must have said something. These guys are flying. It's already 1-0 on a Gilmour goal, and Mullen scores there to make it 2-0. Calgary all over Los Angeles midway through the first period.
Minnesota penalty number
14:34 to go in the second period here, Michael, and it's 3-3 between Chicago and Minnesota.
Well, Casey ends up interfering with Larmer. Larmer was going behind the net to chase Larry Murphy. Casey decided he would get in the way. And as a result, Casey's going, well, he's not going to the penalty box, but somebody's going for John Casey.
We'd really have a story if he was going to the penalty box.
The Blackhawks, which said he did and would go to the penalty box.
So both coaches have seen their teams squander power play chances. The North Stars had all of what? Maybe a dozen seconds on that man advantage. Actually, a little bit more than that. 26 seconds. And the Blackhawks have squandered a couple of power play chances, taking bad penalties. You alluded to that earlier. Penalties and taking them and killing them off or not killing them off. Really the story in this game. All 3 Minnesota goals have come in the man advantage. One of Chicago's 3 goals coming in the power play. The teams at even strength for the next minute and 34 seconds, and then Chicago will have a 26-second power play. Right now they'll play it 4-on-4. Here's Kurt Giles for the North Stars. Modano has it pulled away by Yanni. Here's Murray. Larmer. Tapped ahead by Adam Creighton. Wilkinson. That goes out over 2 lines, offside.
Will Patrick Burke of Burke Charles
Adam Creighton, a guy who never really reached his potential in Buffalo, maybe to a degree playing in the shadow of Dave Andreychuk, a similar type player, big guy, strong, long reach, and I think they expected similar things out of them. They both came out of junior within a few years of one another, and Creighton had to be dealt away before he started to develop.
Mike Keenan's got a lot out of him this year, though. He's got 34 goals, slowed down a little bit offensively at the end of the season with only 5 goals in his last 25 games. Creighton's a man coming into tonight's game that they needed a big performance out of. He's got that big reach. He's a big man. And in front of the net, he can be very dangerous. Game 1, he wasn't dangerous enough, and a smaller center iceman like Groton was controlling Creighton too much. Creighton's played much better tonight.
Creighton with tremendous reach. You'll see him utilize it often, parking himself off to the side of the goal and trying to reach around and tuck it in or direct a pass. Brown takes a couple of digs at it. Away come the Hawks. Lemieux, sharp angle. Casey makes that stop, and a penalty coming up against the North Stars. Frantisek Musil dragging down Greg Gilbert of the Blackhawks. It is 3-3 here, and yes, Virginia, another power play.
You promised yourself you would never buy a boxy, boring, totally utilitarian, drives like a bus compromise. That's okay. We promised ourselves we would never make one. Introducing the new Toyota Previ.
The promise.
Well, if you kind of look, I think, sort of on the right side of your screen, the 3rd green helmet is Frantisek Musil. It's getting crowded in there.
Gilbert's trying to work his way to the net, and he gets mugged by Musil. And because he wasn't playing the puck, he was definitely being interfered with.
Giles in back of the net. Roenick squeezing him. Roenick with the puck. Back to Wilson. To Roenick. Murray. Wilson shoots. What a shot and what a stop. And Murray can't keep it in. He had Aaron Broughton make that Neil Broughton right on him. Here come the Hawks on the power play. A 2-man advantage. Roenick in the corner to Thomas. Lots of room out there for the Hawks. And they're going to blast it around. Thomas again. Being watched by Giles. 2-man advantage for another 6 seconds. Wilson shooting. Score!
See it again. What a shot by Wilson. Now watch what happens after this save is made by Casey. Roenick is standing there. Thomas is standing there. Thomas with the quick hands.
And there was no doubting Thomas there. All alone with an open net, and he clicks in the power play. The Hawks with 4 unanswered goals, blowing past Minnesota. This is more like it as far as Chicago fans are concerned. Shades of the team that finished in first in the Norris. Teams back at even strength. And Roenick and Musil eye to eye. Wouldn't surprise me much if we had more penalties here, Gary. There have been lots of penalties in this game, and there have been 5 power play goals.
The 1990 Pontiac 4-door Grand Prix. Powerful, roomy. This car challenges everything you thought you knew about family cars. And then some. Get an $1,100 credit and 10.9% financing.
Not much room at all. And this is shades of the regular season between these two teams. You can go all the way back to last December when, during the warm-up, Shane Churla slashed Wayne Van Dorp. And they brawled as a result of that. They're not exactly brawling here, but playing it pretty tight and pretty rough.
Thomas definitely got his stick way up too high on Chambers, who then retaliated. Pierre Pagé said that this whole series is a time bomb that's just waiting to go off. Mike Keenan said, oh yeah? Well, Pierre Pagé's got 2 players that can spark the time bomb, and that's Churla and Basil McRae.
Well, Churla and Van Dorp were the 2 guys I just talked about who whacked one another during the warm-ups back in December. They picked up 10-game suspensions for that. There was the season finale. 48 penalties, 13 misconducts, setting the ground rules for this series. The black and blue Norris, or the Chuck Norris division, as some are fond of calling it.
Number 6, František Musil, 2 minutes for roughing. Minnesota penalty number 26, Sean Chambers, 2 minutes for high sticking.
They'll crash it around again off the face-off.
Jeremy Roenick, 2 minutes roughing.
Lemieux trying to carve it loose.
2 minutes for an elbow. All at 7:39.
Bellows.
Minnesota penalty Musil, 2 minutes roughing. Chambers,
to Broughton, offside called in Minnesota.
Roenick, 2 minutes roughing. Thomas, 2 minutes for an elbow. All at 7:39.
Neil Broughton, the all-time leader in points with the North Stars, 661.
And he played in all 80 games this year. Remember, the previous 2 seasons, Neil Broughton had terrible problems with his shoulder. He had it reconstructed once and then continued to seem to get it hurt. So for the 2 previous seasons, Neil Broughton didn't play much. His whole career was in jeopardy. Pierre Pagé had him for all 80 games this year.
Thomas, Musil, Chambers, Roenick, all going off with coincidental minors at 7:39. The team's at even strength. Brown banks it up, kept in. Murphy, an eye-high shot that's gloved down by Ed Belfour, and he hangs onto it.
I don't think Belfour has had to make any more than 3 saves since he came into this game. And once again, it is a strategy that Keenan has employed in the past. Other coaches do it as well. Put a goaltender in who is definitely your backup goaltender. And as a result, the players in front of him play like crazy because they want to keep it down in the North Stars end zone. They're afraid that every shot might go in.
Here's one I'll pose to you, Coach Green. If the Blackhawks hang on and win this hockey game, do you come back in the next one with Greg Millen, who's clearly your #1 man, or do you come back with Ed Belfour?
You come back with Greg Millen. He's your best player, and I don't think he was pulled tonight because of his play. He was pulled for strategy purposes.
Mario Tyre, number 47 out there for the North Stars, trying to jam it loose. Actually, it's number 37, Don Barber. I thought that was a little surprising. Tyre has maybe seen 1 shift in this game. Tenorti. Bellows tapping it with a high stick. Waved up. Here's Barber. Barber in tight. Off a skate. Past Broughton and back out. Tenorti. Manson up off the boards. Duchesne steps in. Oh, Dallin battling with Yanni. Dallin still after it. Takes it away from Yanni. Savard spins around and just loses the puck. 10:35 to play, second period. Hawks leading Minnesota 4-3, and here we go. Adam Creighton and Neil Wilkinson.
Creighton was upset because Savard got roughly treated at the red line while he was carrying the puck up the ice. Creighton took a whack then at Modano, and Wilkinson retaliated.
Just itching to get loose. More wrestling than anything here.
Well, I think Creighton was saying, you're going to attack Dennis Savard, then we'll attack Modano. But Neil Wilkinson had something to say about that.
And Wilkinson standing in pretty good against comparatively a veteran. Wilkinson came up from Kalamazoo, just played down the stretch.
I think it was generally known coming into this series that neither team really had an edge in the toughness. Paget knew it, as did Mike Keenan know it. That if you take our defenseman, we'll take your defenseman. If you want to go after Savard, we'll go after Modano or Broughton. You force our goaltender and jam him, we're going to force yours. It's a mind game, it's a strategy game, and two of the best coaches in the league, Mike Keenan and Pierre Paget, are at their best.
You talk about winning when you had to. Minnesota coming down stretch when they had to win to get into the playoffs, battling with Detroit, went 9-4-1. And they played a large majority of those games on the road coming down the stretch. 7 of their last 9 games were on the road, and they still came through with the victories.
And the one I think people will remember the most is with about 2 weeks remaining in the regular season and the battle between the North Stars of Detroit for the final playoff spot, and the North Stars walked right into Joe Louis Arena and won a big decisive game against the Red Wings. That from a team that had hardly won on the road all season long.
And that's a little bit deceiving. They were 10-28-2 on the road, but they won 5 of their last 7 road games. Let's see what else is going on tonight.
Let's see what's happening in St. Louis, where the Blues admit they play kind of ugly hockey, and it's an ugly goal that puts them ahead. It goes off the leg of McIntyre, off the knee of Paul McLean. Like a pinball, it bounces around, and when it ends up in the net behind Besker, the Blues lead Toronto 2-1 midway through the second.
Adam Creighton picking up roughing and fighting penalties. Wilkinson picking up interference and fighting penalties. Offsetting in nature at 9:29 of the second period. I'm Paul Romanek with Gary Green and Jim Van Horn here at the stadium in Chicago. Game 2 of the Norris Division semifinals. The Blackhawks are up, but they trailed the series 1-0, having lost the opener. Larmer gains the line, trying to snake it through there. Had Gilbert going towards the net. Look at Savard. Look at the strength. Here's Wilson. Shoots. Yanni. Here's Savard again, taking his licks and coming away. Now he's knocked out the puck. Tenorti gets it out. Aaron Broughton crossed up there by Wilson. Savard just slipping the noose there. Stu Gavin had him lined up. Here's Gavin now. Offside. And Gavin, you knew that was going to happen.
And behind the play, Murphy is on top. Is it Larmer?
Yeah, it's Steve Larmer.
Savard came in, gave Gavin the shoulder, knocking them both flying. Savard was upset by some rough treatment he received on the last 2 shifts in the neutral ice. They've been working Savard over pretty good.
Well, and Savard came in for a little bit of payback. He almost got buried, deposited into about the 3rd row by Gavin. Just missed him outside the blue line. Savard got the license number of the truck and doubled back and took a shot at him after the whistle.
Well, if the North Stars are going to lay the body on one particular player, no one better to do it to than Dennis Savard. That's part of the game.
Do you get the sense that fuse is starting to burn down a little bit low here towards the keg of dynamite?
Well, it doesn't look good for you and I when this place blows. We're right up here at the top. It no doubt will blow. The tension between these 2 coaches and their teams has been, well, it's been strong all season long.
Season series is pretty close, 4-3-1 for Minnesota, but all 4 wins for the North Stars came in Minnesota. I think what has surprised a lot of people is how well they have played here in Chicago. Coming out and winning the first game, a tight checking affair, and exploding out of the gate in this one with 3 power play goals. Bellows, Chambers, and Broughton, and it was 3-0 before most people had even settled into their seats here at the stadium. Credit to the Hawks, though. They've really turned it around. 9:37 to play in the second period. 4-3 Chicago leading. Well, Presley, Gilbert, Roenick, and Thomas scoring for Chicago.
Paul, the difference has been the fact that the Blackhawks finally started skating. Now, whether or not you've got to give the North Stars a lot of credit for taking their skating game away from the Blackhawks, but what the Blackhawks finally found were their legs and some aggressiveness and scoring to go with it.
We know who'd love to be here right now watching this one is Jim Houston, who's as big a hockey fan as anybody, but he's down in Florida soaking up a little bit of sun and set to call the game between the Toronto Blue Jays and Texas. Exhibition baseball, 12 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. That would be tomorrow.
Blackhawk penalties. Number 18, Dennis Savard.
The bottom line of all of these penalties is that Steve Larmer of the Blackhawks picks up an additional 2 minutes, so Minnesota will have itself a power play.
Well, just a reminder to you folks that on the 80th game of the season right here in Chicago Stadium, there were 241 minutes of penalties between these 2 teams. That was a vicious 80th game of the season that didn't mean much to either team.
North Stars come in. Belfour holding the fort. Here's Broughton. Chambers, and it hops over his stick and up over the glass. 1:39 left in the Minnesota power play.
Blackhawks have been a little bit more conscious of Brian Bellows out there on the ice, and for good reason. But Bellows still hanging in close in front of that net where he's been able to find some opportunities in this game as well as game number 1. Belfour has been able to keep the puck out.
And Belfour into the hurricane here, having to come off the bench and skate in with his team down 3-0. And as you pointed out, not really tested too severely yet.
Penalty minutes pretty even so far in this game.
Bellows takes the return pass. North Stars on the power play. Chambers. Modano across for Broughton. Chased all the way out. Bellows trying to hold off 2 Hawks. Broughton to Modano. Bellows shoots. Bounces in, it's knocked down, drilled off the boards and out by Keith Brown.
Bellows was trying to surprise Belfour, so he tried to get that shot away quickly, and he flubbed it.
North Stars throw it up quickly, but stopped at the blue line. Puck cleared down the ice by Steve Conroy with 45 seconds left in the Minnesota power play. 4-3, the Blackhawks lead.
Troy Murray missed his man, but he sure did hit the boards and glass hard.
Sounded good. Here comes Barber. Basil McRae. Back out. Aaron Broughton with the shot. That was knocked down. Neil Broughton.
Close checking by Troy Murray.
He was in his back pocket. Basil McRae in deep with 14 seconds to go on the power play for Minnesota. Aaron Broughton takes the bump from Conroy. Chambers. Aaron Broughton shoots. Just whistled it up wide. Penalized player back on, and he's got the puck now. Larmer drops it for Presley. Larmer goes for the net. There's the return pass, and it's knocked away. McRae gets it out. Manson up to Doug Wilson. Steve Larmer up after it. Puts on the brakes. Saw Basil McRae squaring up to hit him. Aaron Broughton across to Basil McRae. Shoots. Belfour juggles and will hang on.
That was unnecessary, and that may be the spark.
You think Churla didn't know he was going to stir things up by going in to take that extra little tickle and get the puck loose?
Manson's going to the penalty box, and he's looking to take somebody with him. That someone he'd like to take is either Basil McRae or Churla.
Basil McRae being guided in that direction, as is Shane Churla. 7:05 to play in the second period. The Blackhawks leading Minnesota 4-3. Here's Michael Landsberg.
In Calgary, it really seemed like the Kings brought nothing to the arena. They were terribly flat, trailing at 2-0, though. Look at Marty McSorley go the other way as Vernon slides across. He puts it right where he came from, and the Kings, who started flat, are back in this one 2-1 late in the first.
And similarly here, Michael, the Blackhawks started flat, down 3-0 at one point. About halfway through the first, they've come storming back and are up 4-3.
Well, this is what all started it. Belfour made the save. Now watch, there's nobody in sight. Larmer leaves the territory, and that was Churla that came in and tried to poke that puck loose after the whistle had clearly already been blown a few seconds prior to that.
Smooth the hair back into place, Pierre. It's been a rough night.
And it's bound to get rougher in this building with a 4-3 hockey game and tempers continuing to rise.
And they're getting heated down in the penalty box, too. Ron Hogarth, the referee, trying to sort things out. Adam Creighton standing up. He's the guy pointing, saying, "What about him?" And let's check in on some more playoff action.
What we're checking in on here is St. Louis versus Toronto, and the Leafs on the power play trailing at 2-1. Watch them get caught up ice. They are in big trouble. Ron Wilson there gets it to Rich Sutter. Sutter with the open net. Bester's being splendid, but the Leafs are playing terribly. 3-1 now in the second.
There goes Churla.
He is going to get the toss. Churla being steered down towards the exit. And the fans just loving that.
It's a good idea when you leave the Chicago Stadium through those stairs to put your helmet on before you go down.
This all comes with 7:05 to play. And Ron Hogarth still sorting it out. We know for sure that Churla is gone. And he was the instigator of all of that, coming in to take a late jab at the puck underneath Chicago goaltender Ed Belfour's glove. Belfour made the initial stop and kind of juggled it.
But there was something going on in the penalty box, and I think there was some sparring, at least verbally, going on back and forth.
Will T. Roth of Evanston
So I think they may have just given Churla 10 minutes to get him out of this period.
He picked up 2 and 10. We know that for sure. 10-minute misconduct plus an additional 2 for slashing or roughing or take your pick.
But that's why they gave him the 10, though, to get him out of this period, so to give him the opportunity to maybe cool off.
And I've got to think that coming out of all of this, the Blackhawks should have themselves a power play. Perhaps Churla's extra 2 will be the difference. John Casey trying to stay sharp. What a year he had for Minnesota. Picked up 31 victories. And Ed Belfour, the man coming on in relief of Greg Millen, on the hot seat in this one. Let's see who else is on the hot seat in this playoff night.
The seat's hot for the Edmonton Oilers as they take on the Winnipeg Jets. Watch in front of the net. Fenton is not touched. He gets one deflection, still standing up, and Paul Fenton able to sweep it into the net. The Winnipeg Jets lead the Edmonton Oilers 2-0 late in the first in Edmonton.
You saw a lot of the Winnipeg Jets this year. Are you as shocked as a lot of people are?
No, I really am not. I think that they've got strong goaltending in essence. They've got good defense, and they've got 3 good lines that they can throw at any team that are well balanced. They're hard-working hockey club. The Oilers are not getting great goaltending from Ranford. They were hoping Fuhr would be back and ready.
Minnesota penalty number 27, Shane Churla.
So indeed, Chicago will get a power play out of this. Minnesota picking up the extra 2 minutes, and up on the scoreboard, the extra 2 going to Basil McRae.
Number 22, Adam Creighton.
Lots to sift through, but the easiest way to explain it to you is that a power play chance coming up for the Blackhawks with 7:05 to go in the second period, and the Hawks leading 4-3.
2 minutes roughing and a 10-minute misconduct penalty. Blackhawk penalties, Manson.
Wilson up ahead to Presley. Gavin knocks it down for the North Stars. The Hawks, who have 2 power play goals in this game, gunning for a third. And a spike into the hopes of the Minnesota hope. Roenick. Tenori there to stop it up, and he will clear it in. Roenick bouncing it in. Presley up to forecheck. Bellows gets there first. Wilson keeps it in. Here's Wilson. Thomas straight in front, just fired wide by Roenick. What a Bob Murray couldn't keep it in.
What a great play. I don't know how he missed.
But he did. And here comes Thomas. Up to Troy Murray. Craig Gilbert crunched. Here's Thomas. And that will sail up over the glass. Thomas getting a bit of a 9-iron on that one and putting it out with 47 seconds still to go in the power play for Chicago.
Well, the Blackhawks came very, very close to scoring another power play goal. Here's the opportunity. Watch how Wilson walks right in. Now, I think he should have shot in that particular case. But instead, he threw it across. Now watch Wilson. Once he does, throw it across to Thomas. Thomas returns it. And how did Roenick miss? Only Roenick knows.
And you know what started all of that? Brian Bellows got to the puck first in the corner of his own end and just smoked it off the boards trying to get it out. And Wilson made a great play at the blue line to knock the puck down and keep the drive alive.
He caught it like he was in spring training camp. I mean, he just knocked it down with his glove, put it right onto his stick, and set it up from there. Doug Wilson, by the way, is also in a precarious situation because his wife Kathy is expecting another child any day now. These hockey players sure don't plan things very well, do they?
These things do happen. 5:52 to go in the second period. The Blackhawks leading the North Stars 4-3.
There is an additional Blackhawks penalty in the last series of penalties to number 28, Steve Larmer. 2 minutes for roughing, also at 12:55.
Hard to believe Minnesota led at 1 point, 3-0. Look to have the Hawks almost signed, sealed, and delivered.
When you talk about Dougie Wilson, what a season he has had for Mike Keenan. He has been in Norris form this year.
.45 seconds remaining in the man advantage for the Chicago Blackhawks. Musil gets to it. Thomas was dumped and the fans hollering for a penalty. Here comes Broughton. Bob Murray had to hustle back there to cut him off. Musil. Too high for Gavin. He just lets it bounce in. 15 seconds left in the Hawks power play. Bob Murray. Bellows gets there first. Tenorti can't clear it. Thomas shoots. And Casey fires the pad out to kick it away. Penalized player back on. Teams at even strength. And they'll scrum it up rugby style along the boards with 4:58 to play in the second period, and the Hawks leading 4-3.
All the scores in the NHL tonight. Gaetan Duchesne has been a good, solid performer for the Minnesota North Stars. He started on a line the other night with Churla and with McRae. He was at center ice. Duchesne was formerly a Washington Capital. That's where he started his NHL career as an underage player, as a 19-year-old. Then he went to the Quebec Nordiques. He's always been a good, solid defensive player, and Pierre Pagé needed more of them.
Lots of penalties tonight, which is pretty much a matter of course when these two teams get together. 61 for the Hawks, 63 for the North Stars, and as you would expect, lots of action on the power play. 5 goals scored on the man advantage in this game. All 3 of Minnesota's goals, and 2 of Chicago's 4 goals coming with the power play.
It was announced today, and I don't know how formal it was, that Mike Keenan is more than likely going to become the general manager here next year. Meanwhile, that is Cloutier that is still sitting out.
Got a great seat up in the organ loft. That massive organ up behind him.
Getting back to Mike Keenan's situation is that Bob Pulford is likely to still continue. I mean, there's no question about that in a capacity of director of operations, of hockey operations. Mike Keenan, though, is more than likely this summer going to become both general manager and coach. And Bill Wirtz said that has nothing to do as to how the Blackhawks perform during playoffs. Mike Keenan's their man. They don't have a one-year plan. They have a 5-year plan. And Keenan will stay behind the bench and more than likely become the general manager as well. Keenan wasn't all that happy with Bill Wirtz bringing that up today. He thought it was a distraction to his team.
Here comes Aaron Broughton in on goal. He's hauled down. No penalty. And Broughton hammered along the boards, coming back out. And Tenorti is incensed, storming at the referee, Ron Hogarth.
Broughton, you can see the cut on his right cheek, just below the eye. Take a look at what happened. You know, that was his own player's stick that got him in the face. It was Tenorti's stick that hit Broughton right in the face. Oh, I shouldn't say Tenorti. It was Brian Bellows' stick that hit Broughton right in the face. So Tenorti has no reason to be upset at anyone than Brian Bellows.
A rough 20 seconds or so for Aaron Broughton. He was hauled down, storming in towards the goal seconds before that. And then watch this. Watch the stick of Bellows come up, and boom. And Aaron Broughton being dusted off and
I
back
think
to the bench.
Someone got to Tenorti pretty quickly, and I think it was Bellows. Tenorti was looking for the guilty Blackhawk, and I think that Bellows more than likely told him that it was none other than his own stick that hurt Aaron Broughton.
And Ron Hogarth just coming away from the penalty box. Not sure whether he's calling something or not. I don't see any of the doors opening, which is unusual in this game.
Minnesota penalty number 7, Neil Broughton, a 10-minute misconduct penalty at 15-15. Minnesota penalty, Neil Broughton.
Must have been something he said.
Obviously, he was upset, thinking, no doubt, that it was a Blackhawk stick that hurt his brother.
So he picks up a 10-minute misconduct. The team stay at even strength with 4:40 to go in the second period, and the Hawks leading 4-3. And a delayed penalty coming up. Did I say the team stayed at even strength?
Yeah.
Delayed penalty on the Hawks. The puck is cleared in. And for about the umpteenth time, we'll get another look at a power play. This time, a North Stars man advantage opportunity. Right now, let's see how things are going between St. Louis and the Leafs.
If you're a Blues fan, they're going great. If you're a Leaf fan, this is disaster. Toronto just being outplayed in every facet of this game. Cavallini snaps a shot over Alan Bester. Now, if you're saying, where's the D? Very good question. Back to Chicago we go.
34. Blackhawks penalty, Troy Murray.
2-minute penalty going to the Chicago Blackhawks, Troy Murray.
Well, Murray and Brian Bellows were involved in a sparring match right at the blue line. And that wasn't the particular sparring match by any means, but what had happened was that Troy Murray continued it a little bit longer than he should have, and as a result, he put Brian Bellows down right in front of the eyes of Ron Hogarth.
Tripping is the call if you're scoring at home, although I can't imagine why you would be, because you'd have to be running out of paper and ink by now. The proverbial big power play opportunity late in the second period. North Stars down by 1. Here's Bellows in front of the net, just popped it past off Dallin. Dallin after it back of the goal. Chambers pinching in, couldn't get there in time. No problem for Greg Gilbert to clear it down the ice. 1 minute and 40 seconds left in the man advantage for the North Stars. Here comes Chambers. Here comes Bellows. Here comes Modano. None of them can keep it in. Chambers. Modano given a bump by Jocelyn Lemieux. The Hawks aggressive in the penalty killing.
Jocelyn Lemieux has got great speed, and he loves to throw the body around.
He jumped! Here comes Bellows to Chambers. 1 minute left in the power play, and here comes Presley. He's got a break. Presley scores!
Responsible for this setup. Wayne Presley has been responsible for more than just that goal tonight.
Presley with a power play goal to go with that shorthanded goal. And the Hawks are up 5-3.
Blackhawks goal.
And the Hawks have picked up a penalty during all of this, and that is what the chatting is about right now. A bit of controversy here and also a little bit in St. Louis. Let's check that out with Michael Landsberg.
Well, as you enjoy an intense game between Minnesota and Chicago, I've been watching the Maple Leafs embarrass themselves. They're trailing 4-1, and it could be more. Watch the shot here go underneath the crossbar, hit the mesh, and then bounce out. Clearly, this should be a goal, but clearly it was not called a goal, and the score remains 4-1. And keep in mind that St. Louis had another goal disallowed that the official said was kicked in. It is now, after 2 periods of play, the Maple Leafs, with only 1 scoring chance in that period, trail it 4-1.
Well, they're cheering the announcement of the Blackhawks goal, not the announcement of the bench minor on the Chicago Blackhawks that comes at the same time as the goal. That is 16:39. Bittersweet moment for Mike Keenan. His team gets a big shorthanded goal, but takes a bench minor.
And I wish I could talk to Mike right now. I don't know why they got that bench minor, especially when they had just scored the goal that came at the same time. But Mike Keenan is really upset.
Dwayne Sutter going across to serve the bench minor. And I can only guess, but there was a lot of yapping going on between the 2 benches and at the linesman as he skated by. Five to 3, Chicago leading. And now a 2-man advantage for the Minnesota North Stars, and it is payoff time right here for Minnesota. Larmer kept in. Minnesota 2-man advantage. Modano to Murphy. Bellows back to Modano. Dallin is in front. There's a shot. That's stopped by Belfour. Here's Bellows. Another shot, and another stop by Belfour. Bellows trying to center it. Hawks can't get it out. Brian Bellows. Across for Murphy. Back to Modano. Shooting. That's tipped wide. Murphy again. In front. Gagne with a shot. What a stop.
Pressure, folks. Pressure for one man in particular, Ed Belfour. 5 skaters to 3. Here's the shot. There's the save by Belfour. He was able to grab it with his glove, hang on to it. Larry Murphy showed great patience in setting this opportunity up. But it's not over yet for Belfour. There's still 1 minute and 3 seconds remaining on that bench minor penalty.
He can take some solace in the fact that the 2-man advantage that Minnesota enjoyed is over. It is down to a 1-man advantage with 2:24 to go in the second period. Chicago leading 5-3. I'm Paul Romanek with Gary Green and Jim Van Horn at the stadium in Chicago. Michael Landsberg is keeping his eyes peeled on all the other action going on tonight. We've had enough action here to keep our hands full. This period in straight time over an hour now, over the 1-hour mark. Here's Modano to Murphy. Murphy again. Can't get it through the maze of sticks and skates, and it's cleared. Barber stops. Tried to spot it through for Basil McRae. Again, the Hawks there.
Now here is a situation where these fans are helping kill this penalty off.
30 seconds left in the power play for Minnesota. Modano drops it off. Aaron Broughton with a shot off the boards, and Belfour will grab it and hang on. Tangle some more.
Well, Sunday's final game, I think, took 3 hours and 35 minutes to play from puck drop.
These two teams take a day off and go at it again on Sunday. You can see it here on TSN, 8:30 Eastern Time, the North Stars and the Blackhawks.
Well, Churla is out of the lineup, and now Basil McRae has been sent to the dressing room with 1:39 remaining in this second period.
What a great close-up of Basil McRae. You could just see the intensity.
Well, he's known for his toughness, but he's also a pretty good leader. That's shown by Page giving him the captain's sweater to wear.
6, Jocelyn Lemieux, 2 minutes for unsportsmanlike conduct at 18:21.
5-3, 1:39 to go in the second period. Minnesota led 3-0 about halfway through the first period on goals from Bellows, Chambers, and Neil Broughton. Chicago has come back with a pair of goals from Wayne Presley. Greg Gilbert, Jeremy Roenick, and Steve Thomas have chipped in with singles, and it is 5-3. 18 seconds left in the man advantage for Minnesota. Do you even want to attempt to sort out all these penalties? Have you got your slide rule handy?
Nope.
Here's Chambers. 10 seconds left in the power play. Bellows centers it. Gagne back to Chambers, and he couldn't keep it in. Penalized players back on. Sutter almost picks up a gift. Here's Larmer coming in with Dwayne Sutter. Gagne for Minnesota in over the blue line. Less than a minute to go in the period. 5-3, Chicago leading the North Stars. Bellows with some room, gains the blue line. Tenorti off his stick. Sutter up ahead for Thomas. He's headed off at the pass by Gavin. Jeremy Roenick. And back behind the play, Sutter drops to his knees. He and Mike Modano got tangled up. Rough night for Dwayne Sutter. That's the first shift he's had in the game. And he takes the stick.
Oh. He took a swat at Sutter, and his stick did come around. Sutter dropped quickly. We'll see whether or not Sutter is able to draw a penalty on Modano from it.
It doesn't look like he's cut. Sutter, a veteran of the playoff wars with the Islanders. 4 Stanley Cups with those great Islanders teams.
2 minutes for high sticking. Blackhawk penalty number 12, Wayne Sutter.
And Modano and Sutter get offsetting minors for high sticking at 19:31.
Minnesota penalty, Modano, 2 minutes high sticking. Blackhawk penalty, Sutter, 2 minutes high sticking.
Sutter gets a headache to boot.
19:31.
Well, at least somebody can smile.
Hogarth's probably looking over the benches and seeing that there's far more room left for those players who are sitting on the benches right now.
Yanni snaps it in. Presley up there. Presley stopped by Casey. Yanni back to pick it up. Great chance for the Hawks. And here we go again. with 10 seconds to go. Can you just waive the last 10 seconds of a period?
Sure, put them on to the start of the third, but right now I don't know what good that would do because the third period's probably going to be the same as the second.
If this were a recipe, then you'd say they were just going to simmer things for the next 15 minutes or so and turn the burner back up to high for the third period.
What a great insertion Presley's been to the lineup tonight. We've said it a few times, we'll say it again, as he had another scoring opportunity. Presley has shown great speed, which he possesses tonight. His intensity level has been higher than any other Hawk, which makes you wonder where he was game one.
There's our MVP for the night, Ron Hogarth.
Hey, just trying to keep these two teams from going full blast into war is a job in itself. Hogarth saw the game one, which Terry Gregson did an excellent job at. Gregson was able to control both of the clubs, give them their minors, but keep them cooled off. Hogarth has adopted exactly the same style tonight.
Well, that is a great thing about the playoffs, is that because you have a backup official at every game, Hogarth, for example, in the first game, he has a chance to see how things develop, get a feel for it.
Sometimes coaches like that, sometimes they don't.
10 seconds left. 5-3, Chicago leading. And you know the puck's going back to Doug Wilson at the point. Here it is, and here's Wilson. There's that shot, and there's Casey with the save. And that will do it for a long period number 2. Well over 1 hour on the clock.
Well, with a couple of seconds left, we would normally have said there was time for one more shot. But in tonight's game, it was time for one more hit.
Lots of shots, lots of hits, and lots of action still to come. Here's Jim Van Horn.
Well, if you can remember back to the first period at the 14:24 mark, that's when the Chicago Blackhawks scored the first goal of their game. They have not looked back since. They got the momentum in the second period, and the fact that the North Stars haven't been able to test Ed Balfour, except for late in the second period, you've got a 5-3 lead for the Chicago Blackhawks. It's a type of game that has had every kind of emotion imaginable, and there's still a third period to come. The only even-strength goal scored in the second period came from Greg Gilbert at 1:49. From then on, Jeremy Roenick scored on the power play. Steve Thomas scored on the power play. Then Wayne Presley got his second of the night shorthanded to make it 5-3 for Chicago at 16:39. Shots on goal in that second period again in favor of the Blackhawks by an 11-7 count. 22-14 two-period total. One other statistic you might be interested in: penalty minutes in that second period. 71 to the Chicago Blackhawks, 69 to the Minnesota North Stars, for a total of 140 so far. 20 minutes of hockey left. Paul?
Whoa. Greener's slide rule is smoking here, trying to figure all of that out.
Hey, with penalties right now, it's the old marbles in the pocket. They're pretty even.
5-3 as we tee it up for the third period. 22-14 the shots on goal. As you just heard from Jim, Chicago leading in that department and leading on the scoreboard as well. 5 goals and 22 shots. That's not a bad shooting percentage. Roughly 25%. Teams start the period at even strength. Casey, great stop on Greg Gilbert, who is promptly decked by Gaetan Duchesne. And the puck knocked ahead with the glove, so the play whistled down, and Duchesne and Gilbert now exchanging words. Be sure to listen up at the conclusion of the game for the Armor All Turning Point.
You could use Armor All Protectant and keep your car in the garage. Or you could just keep your car in the garage. Of course, there are alternatives, but only Armor All works like Armor All.
John Casey called on early in the period. Greg Gilbert with a glorious scoring opportunity.
Casey's performed well, and he's been a major factor in Minnesota, playing so well.
Set the team record for victories in a season this year. He had 31. The old record held by Gilles Meloche, 27 wins. Back in that Cinderella North Star team of 79-80. Presley trying to crank one on goal. That's blocked at the defense. Barber comes in, and offside is called. Back at the blue line, Brian Bellows and Steve Conroy wrapped up.
But there's an interference penalty, and you know, it's a good penalty that's being called. Conroy, I think, is being penalized for interference.
Well, Bellows was trying to get the jump to come in over the blue line with Barber, and Tenorti was stuck to him pretty closely and made sure he wasn't going anywhere.
Blackhawk penalty number 5, Steve Conroy, 2 minutes for holding at 35 seconds. Blackhawk penalty Conroy, 2 minutes for holding at 35
Only 35 seconds into the period. Here we go.
You don't see this called often. Now watch. Conroy just knocks his man right offside, which takes away a North Star scoring opportunity. At least it could have been one. Hogarth made that interference call, and it was a good one.
Hogarth walking a tightrope here. If he does too much, people are going to say that he's taking the game away from the players. If he doesn't do enough and things get out of hand, then guess who's got egg on his face? So far, I think he's done a pretty good job. Gagne in deep. Barber up after it. He's promptly taken out. Bob Murray just killing off time. Good shot and a good stop by Belfour on Sean Chambers, who was on the move.
Chambers showed great speed there.
In front, another stop by Belfour, and it's fired wide. Barber shooting it up around the boards. 1:14 left in the power play for Minnesota, and they will scrunch it up.
Gagne was upset at Keith Brown, but yet Keith Brown had reason to be upset at Barber from behind. Great save by Belfour here. He showed good quickness. He was holding his ground. Gagne got the shot away. The North Stars had good pressure on the Blackhawks.
Just before that, he made a good stop on Sean Chambers, who had a good burst of speed coming down the left-hand side. Belfour, hats off to him. He came in under difficult circumstances. The Hawks were down 3-0 when Greg Millen got the hook. Belfour came in, and he's done a job.
Well, it's tough to prepare yourself for a game like this when you realize during the course of the day that there's very little chance of you getting in, but yet you might be called upon. And Belfour was. And he's been good.
1:11 to go in the power play for the Minnesota North Stars. Aaron Broughton at center. Number 47, Mario Tyre, getting a rare shift. Pierre Paget trying to get something going. A pair of fresh legs out on the ice. McRae. Murray snaps it out. 40 seconds left in the power play for the North Stars. Wilkinson. Gilbert all over him. Great work by Gilbert. Centers it in front. Here's Brown at the blue line. 25 seconds left in the North Stars power play. Here's Gilbert. Just wide. And he draws the penalty to boot. A busy night here, and as is usually the case in playoffs elsewhere.
Number 47.
The elsewhere is Calgary Flames against the Los Angeles Kings. It was 4-1 for Calgary. Herdina and Jim Korn, nobody covering him. That made it 5-1. You think it's over, but maybe not. Watch this mad scramble in front of the net and try to keep your eye in front of the net on Luc Robitaille, number 20. Standing up, seems to be well covered by McGinnis. McGinnis leaves him, and then Robitaille bangs in the rebound. The Kings have cut the lead to 5-2. Let's go back to Chicago.
Mentioned that Mario Tire hadn't seen a lot of ice time. And he showed why, perhaps. Coughing up the puck just inside of his own blue line. He ended up having to pull down Greg Gilbert.
Gilbert has been extremely effective in this game. He scored a goal in the second period and almost gets himself one here in the third. Great effort by Greg Gilbert, who's one of the better defensive players in this league and who should be considered for the Selke Award this year.
Will he be?
Time will tell, but he should be.
Couple of Stanley Cups with the Islanders. That's not a bad organization to hone your defensive skills with. Teams at even strength for the next 3 seconds, and then it is power play time. Gagne is decked. And if there is no penalty here, which is by no means a certainty, it would be a minute 45 power play for Chicago.
Well, the North Stars are trying to clear the puck. They don't quite clear it. Musil fires it off the glass and hits Gagne right in the head.
Well, the LA Kings try to make some noise and rattle some cages and come back in the Calgary Flames. Here's Michael Landsberg.
Actually, Paul, it's the guy in the cage who seems to be rattled. Mike Vernon, not playing very well from the Calgary Flames, gives a huge rebound, seems to lose sight of the puck, puts it right on the stick of Larry Robinson, and the Kings, dead and buried at 5-1, are very much alive at 5-3 early in the second.
And it's 5-3 early in the third here, Michael. 17:25 to go. I'm Paul Romanek with Gary Green and Jim Van Horn at the stadium. No place like it to watch a hockey game.
Well, except maybe Madison Square Gardens, where we'll be tomorrow night, and after last night's game there. I think the noise meter are pretty equal.
Here's Ronick. Had it knocked off his stick. Giles with a great play. Here's Wilson. Thomas. To Yanni. Larmer after it. Couldn't cut it off. A minute 14 to go on the power play for Chicago. Aaron Groton. To Stu Gavin. Content to just feather it in. 59 seconds left in the power play for Chicago. Here's Brown. Savard shoots. Casey to stop. And Bellows with possession of the rebound. Duchesne falls. Wilson comes away. Up to Larmer and back behind the play. Brian Bellows along with Keith Brown. And now everybody join in the party. 6:16 still to go in the third period. It's 5-3 Chicago.
If you hang out with Canada's top builders, you'll see
over an hour in penalty minutes.
That was Ronick's opportunity. He just lost possession of the puck.
Great play by Giles to knock it loose. Again, just getting back to that point, over an hour in penalty minutes in 6 of the 8 series last year per game. No series was less than 44 penalty minutes per game. Just seems to be a thing with the first round. You want to draw the lines.
Well, quite honestly, I'm getting a little tired of it here in this building right now. They should stop challenging each other physically in the toughness department and worry about the scoreboard.
Larmer moves it in. Thomas a shot. And Casey was there with the answer. Here's Yanni. Shooting. That's stopped. And Gavin gets it out. Offside. 4 seconds left in the power play for Chicago. More scoring in Calgary. Here's Michael.
Well, sure, Paul. We haven't shown you a goal in at least the last 15 seconds. A wild one in Calgary between the Flames and the Kings. Doug Gilmour didn't have a shot on goal in game number 1. Not only does he have a couple here, he's got a couple of goals as he tips one in front. 2 goals and 1 assist. This is now after 2, 6-3 for the Flames over the Kings.
5-3, Chicago leading here. Shots on goal 26-16 for the Hawks.
Neither of these two teams want to give each other any edge whatsoever when it comes down to toughness, but yet their interpretation of toughness in this game so far has been more along the high sticking, the elbowing, the tripping calls that we've seen way too many of. It could be such a great game if they could eliminate that.
Here comes Giles. Belfour with the stop. Maybe the North Stars to shoot on Belfour a little more. He really hasn't been tested all that much, save for a couple of big stops he made in the last period. Here's Roenick. Presley off the boards after his own rebound, knocked down. Thomas with it. And the puck was gloved ahead. That's the stoppage.
Poor Presley gets called for gloving the puck ahead. Meanwhile, he was run over. He's not quite sure by what, but it was green.
I think the green might have had a 6 on it. I'm not sure. Frantisek Musil has landed a couple of great body checks tonight.
He's a tough player. He spent a fair amount of time in the penalty box game 1. He's been no stranger to it in game 2.
Kind of one of those nagging years for Musil. He missed 15 games with various ailments. A little bit of this and a little bit of that, just enough to keep him out. A sprain here and a twist there. Lots of twists and turns thrown on everybody in this game. The referee, the fans, especially the players. 5:15 still to go in the third period. The Hawks are up 5-3. They trailed 3-0 about halfway through the first period. And that's when the bottom kind of fell out in the North Stars. Tenortian over the blue line. Here's Al Secord. Lead pass for Larmer, almost sprung him. Here's Larmer. Secord in front of the net, couldn't land tape on that pass.
Secord didn't see much action after the first period. He took that bad elbowing penalty. Mike Keenan more or less designated him to the bench in place of Greg Gilbert, who saw then lots of ice time.
And Secord having words with Basil McRae. See if Mike Keenan gets him off the ice. McRae is going to head off. The funny thing is that he led the NHL this year in penalty minutes, but that was his lowest penalty total in the last 3 years. His lowest, his personal lowest. Still good enough to lead the league. Or bad enough, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way.
Well, it was just a little bit more evenly distributed on the North Stars this year, though, with Shane Churl picking up 292 minutes. That helped out a bit. Took the pressure off him. And, of course, Mark Tenorti sat in there for close to 250 minutes as well.
Because, of course, there is great pressure to lead the team in penalty minutes. Here's Barber. Wilson right on him. Barber gets it back. Centered it. Cleared away. And away comes Roenick to Thomas. Tried to get it back to Roenick. Might have shot. Here's Thomas. Gaetan Duchesne. A little bit too far for Barber. Here comes Duchesne clearing it in now. Belfour out of his net. Roenick up ahead to Thomas. Too high for him. Now Giles with it. 14 minutes to play in the third period. Chicago leading Minnesota 5-3. Aaron Broughton going after it. Gavin up to help out. Conroy on his knees gets it up around. And here comes Troy Murray. Craig Gilbert grappled up, couldn't quite get to it. Broughton had a hold of him. And Gagne will head back.
You never know.
Gagne drops it off. Here's Gavin. Spun around, couldn't get it in front of the net. Aaron Broughton comes over to get it. Gavin knocks it loose. If he can get his stick loose, he might be able to make a play.
Blackhawks are starting to win far more battles in the second and third period along the boards.
Secord back out onto the ice for the Blackhawks. He came charging out with a vengeance. I got a feeling he's going to clock somebody in this shift if he gets the chance. Modano works it up around. Here's Larmer trying to get it in front. Secord going for the net. There's the pass, and it's just tipped away by Modano. Up ahead. Belfour juggles it. Yanni almost scored in his own net. That's the toughest shot Belfour has faced this period.
He sure didn't expect it.
Trent Yanni with a great scoring chance. Unfortunately, it was against his own goalie.
In Canada, the male will try to entice the female by staging a colorful display. It's called...
And of course, we have curling, Canada and Scotland. That's tomorrow at 6 in the morning Eastern. Set the alarm and get up early. Ed Wernick, the Canadian skip, looking to lead Canada to a world championship.
If this game doesn't hurry up and go, you're not going to have to set the alarm, folks.
We might just throw it right over to Vic Rauter and company over in Sweden. Chambers back in his own end. Teams are at even strength, by the way. 12-10 to play in the third period. 5-3, Chicago leading. Conroy gets caught up just outside the line. And more yapping. And while you watch the yapping, you can also take a gander at scores of the other games in and around the NHL tonight.
I think most people look at the box scores tomorrow and look at all of those penalty minutes and say, boy, there must have been some real Donnie Brooks. There must have been some real fights in this game. Well, there haven't been. Been all minor penalties and with a few misconducts thrown into it.
There was one fight, and that was more of sort of a grapple back in the first period between Neil Wilkinson and number 22, Adam Creighton.
I think Bellows is going to the penalty box now, but he's going to be accompanied by a Blackhawk.
And is he going to be accompanied by Lemieux of the Blackhawks? Bellows and Jocelyn Lemieux will have a seat. And this is a rarity. There's lots of room for them to stretch out in the penalty box. It was standing room only for most of the second period, which took about an hour and 15 minutes running time to play. 5-3 the score. Chicago leading Minnesota, and those North Stars with quite a task ahead of them in the remaining 11:53 of this third period. Although, to look at it optimistically from their point of view, they are going to go back to Minnesota no worse than tied in this series, which is a lot better than many people would have expected. And they won all 4 of their home games this year against Chicago. So in a sense, they have pulled the home ice advantage away from the Hawks.
The North Stars have slowed down. Second period, the Blackhawks, as we mentioned earlier, started skating. The North Stars looked a little sluggish. Pierre Pagé had said that his team is not as fast as Mike Keenan's hockey club. Keenan's hockey club finally started to, as he calls them, use the pistons in the second period.
Ulf Dahlen hasn't really, I don't think, had his greatest game in a while tonight. One of a number of North Stars who just haven't seemed to have that extra jump that they had in the first game. And one reason maybe why they haven't been able to get into a groove is because of all those penalty minutes. Modano looks for Dahlen. And Gilbert gets it out. Neil Wilkinson, number 39, working it up. Oh, Dahlen couldn't get to it. Greg Gilbert off the boards. Modano gulps it in just wide of the net. And you called it a few moments ago, Gary. The North Stars just not getting to those loose pucks in the corners. Don't seem to have the jump. the spark. Pass intended for Wilkinson, knocked down by Adam Creighton. Here's Savard. He's always got some jump in his stride. Continues to chase, but Broughton dumps it off. Creighton comes in. Says hello to Mark Tenorti, bumping him. Wilson back there to break it up. He's given a bump. Savard. Murphy pinched well in from the line, couldn't keep it in. Tenorti touches it, an icing called on Chicago.
You know, I don't think I've seen Denis Savard play as chippy a game as he's played tonight. He's been intent on battling the North Stars physically, one-on-one, rather than looking for open ice and to get into scoring position.
And of all guys to wake him up, it seemed to be Stu Gavin back in that second period when they exchanged a couple of pretty hard hits, and Savard took exception to something and came in and took a run at Gavin. It seemed to wake him up.
Well, Mike Keenan's got what he wanted, though, and that's some balanced scoring out there tonight. He didn't want to have to rely on Denis Savard or Steve Larmer in order to get this hockey club going. And as we look at the goal scorers, they haven't had to rely on them. Presley with 2, Thomas, Roenick, Gilbert. It's been a team effort.
And Greg Millen likely wishing he could have been a bigger part of the effort. He started this game, gave up all 3 of the Minnesota goals, and was pulled. Murphy with a shot wide.
He's a good team player, though. He's been keeping the players alive on the bench, too, and keeping their spirits up. Greg Millen isn't one to sit and sulk.
One of the guys who is a pleasure to deal with in and around the NHL. Always has something interesting to add when you talk to him about a game or about a situation. 10:08 to play in the third period, 5-3. The Blackhawks leading Minnesota, and coming up after the NHL tonight, Sports Desk. All the NHL playoff highlights. A little bit of baseball maybe thrown in for good measure, maybe a little bit of curling, the usual potpourri.
Been a fair number of icings in this third period of play. Slowing the game down.
Grinding to a bit of a halt when you consider the way things really seem to be flowing for the first period. Penalties will do that. Kind of breaks up the momentum, and I'm sure, Gary, that's fine with the Hawks at this point.
No question.
Slow her down.
Part of the strategy as well. Doesn't hurt to keep Brian Bellows in the penalty box, too.
Drop the puck anytime. There we go. Murphy back to pick it up. Conroy couldn't handle it. Gagne busting through. Instead of going, he decided to dump it off. Here comes Roenick. Hit off the boards. Casey out. Murphy. Cross ice. Basil McRae looked up at the last second and had to slip the check. Presley had him lined up. Here's Murphy. Basil McRae wheeling in. Here's McRae and Wilson. Couple of veterans. McRae couldn't shake loose. Puck cleared down the ice. Tenorti back after it. 9 minutes and 17 seconds to play in the third period. An icing call on the Chicago Blackhawks. No scoring so far in the third. Lots in the first 2 periods. Bellows after it in the corner, trying to work it in front. Just past the halfway point of this third period. Minnesota trailing Chicago 5-3. Creighton battling back there with Duchesne. Now here's Steve Conroy for the Hawks. Kept in at the line by Duchesne. Nope, not quite. Thought maybe, but then again, the linesman a little bit closer than we are.
Tough for the North Stars to get any momentum going right now when there are so many stoppages in play.
It has really been stop and go, stop and go.
Mackey and Fraser not playing tonight. They're sitting up in the press box watching this game. I'm sure wishing they could get out there and do something right now. about this lag that the North Stars have experienced.
Mackey just out because of numbers. Frazier is a write-off for the rest of this season. Major reconstructive surgery on one of his knees. Bellows going after it. If there was a guy in this North Stars team who can perhaps get things rolling for them at this dwindling stage of the game, it's Bellows. That would have made it tougher had Presley put that in. Presley continues to chase back of the net, trying to center it. Casey blocking off the pass. Look at Presley, won't give up. Finally, the North Stars come away.
Presley's unbelievable tonight. He must have had 14 chocolate bars this afternoon.
Energy to burn. Long pass up the middle, connecting with no one. Belfour out to handle it.
You know why I like you, Paul? Because you didn't say anything about that comment, and if Jim Houston were here, he would have tore me apart. Thanks, pal.
Well, there's a seniority thing here, you know. Here's Wilkinson, top of the slot. Centers it across. McRae's dump. No penalty. He was looking at Hogarth for the call. Doesn't come. Here's Giles. Lots of action behind the play. It was Bellows exchanging a whack with Ed Belfour. And Bellows has words with Manson.
Who is it? That's Savard that's going to come in and take on Bellows. I mean, something's unbalanced here, folks.
Let him go. That's a match you'd like to see.
Manson, yes, but Savard? Well, it would be even anyway. Two great offensive players. Manson is trying to hold his cool. I mean, I have seen it tonight a number of times where he's just steaming, but tries to stay on the penalty box.
To the Madison Square Zoo tomorrow night. The Rangers and the Islanders, 8:30 Eastern. The start time an hour later than usual because the circus is in at Madison Square Garden. It'll take them a while to do the changeover. And then on Sunday, the North Stars and the Blackhawks from the Met Center. Gary Green and Jim Houston.
I'm glad you clarified it. It's not a zoo, it's a circus.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's in or not, Madison Square Garden is usually a circus. It's an exciting building, so catch us for that one, folks.
Against the Minnesota North Stars. And has followed it up with a great rookie year. He'll get some votes. Second in rookie scoring. Murphy back gets there first, and icing called on Chicago.
The Blackhawks in the strategy. Just keep slowing it down, slowing it down. May not be amusing to you folks, but this is all part and parcel of what Mike Keenan thinks it takes right now to preserve this 5-3 win.
This is
or lead.
This is, dare I say it, Roger Nielsen type hockey on the part of the Blackhawks.
Well, Mike Keenan was schooled the right place. He was, of course, the coach of junior hockey in Peterborough.
Wouldn't be referring to Peterborough by any chance, would you?
Pierre Pagé, on the other hand, has had tremendous coaching experiences in college hockey and, of course, with the Calgary Flames. Organization.
I'm flattered that he comes up to your standards, though, considering he didn't coach in Peterborough.
I think Pagé is a great coach. You don't have to coach in Peterborough to be a great coach.
It helps, though, does it? Yeah.
You old Oshawa general.
The Generals and the Pete set to square off in an Ontario Hockey League playoff series. Great playoffs going in junior hockey as well. Memorial Cup coming up on TSN in May. Gilbert trying to center it in front. Roenick was there and he was tied up. Here's Gagne. Long shot. Belfour, big juicy rebound. Dallin with a shot. Belfour makes the save. Back come the North Stars. It's late. They're down by a pair. Here's Barber. Drops it off. It was a no-look pass, and it ended up looking that way as it was right under the stick of Larmer. Look up ahead to Presley. Presley shoots. Another shot. And a delayed penalty coming up on the Minnesota North Stars.
I don't believe Jocelyn Lemieux out there. I mean, he's just performed great along the boards. Back in the neutral zone, at his own blue line, He just simply outmuscled the North Star defenseman and broke away to give Presley that scoring opportunity.
13:41. Minnesota Bentley Murphy, 2 minutes for tripping at 13.
Look at that hustle by Presley.
Presley worked his way in to get one chance, two chances. Jocelyn Lemieux, his partner, was right there waiting for a rebound. But prior to that, way back in the neutral ice, those opportunities wouldn't even have existed had it not been for the determination of Jocelyn Lemieux.
Visions of a hat trick dancing in the eyes of Wayne Presley. Ed Belfour, Chicago goaltender, coming on in relief of Greg Millen.
That was Lemieux's opportunity along the boards. You could see him scrambling in order to get the puck to Presley. Casey stood his ground, though, and made 2 good saves.
So Larry Murphy is off, and Chicago has itself a power play. Tripping call on Murphy. Here's Wilson. Murray with a shot. That's knocked down. Rebound in front. Chambers couldn't get it out. Here's Larmer. Into Adam Creighton. Given a bump by Tenorti. Creighton, with that great reach of his, manages to maintain enough control to dish it off. Gets it back now. Thomas. To Murray. To Wilson. Creighton in front of the net. Battling away. Murray shoots. That's tipped wide. Here's Wilson now. Across, Thomas centers it in front, and Creighton couldn't get to it. And finally, Neil Broughton gets it out with 1:05 to go on the power play chance for Chicago. Chicago 3 for 10 on the power play. Minnesota likewise. Roenick comes up with it for his efforts, but hands it away. Here comes Bellows back. Bellows trying to spark something. Centers it across in front. Belfour juggles, and he'll keep it in play. Presley. Here's Keith Brown stepping in over the blue line. Wayne Presley with it now. Broken up. Gaetan Duchesne crisscrossing with Bellows. And they can't get their act together to come in over the blue line. Seconds left in the Hawks power play. Thought maybe Savard was cranking it up for a rush there, but he just dumps it in. And icing called on Chicago with 5-3. The Hawks overcoming a 3-0 deficit with 5 unanswered goals.
Well, of course, with the power play opportunity by the Blackhawks, that picked up the pace immensely. 5 seconds remaining in it. Face-off deep back in Chicago's end zone. An important face-off as well for the North Stars right now. Belfour has done everything and more that Mike Keenan has requested.
Although, in fairness to Greg Millen, he most certainly didn't see the intensity of action that Millen did in the first 10 minutes of that first period.
North Stars were all over Greg Millen very early in the game, and with some great scoring opportunities.
Here's Steve Conroy. Penalized player back on for the North Stars. Teams are at even strength. And the sand starting to trickle through the hourglass for the North Stars on this game. Trying to battle his way in, Aaron Broughton. Finally turned away. Puck cleared down the ice by Jocelyn Lemieux. 3:45 to go. Here comes Wilkinson. Lead pass. Broughton sprinting in after it. Belfour out of net, gets tangled up with Broughton. Bouncing puck, and Belfour will gobble it up. They're trying, but Belfour doing a pretty good job.
.
early in third.
Well, the LA Kings, to their credit, showing some persistence and bouncing back in that one.
They're giving the Calgary Flames the same type of trouble that the Vancouver Canucks gave the Flames in the first round last year.
Here's Murphy. That's blocked by Denny Savard. And Savard's got it now. Giles off the boards. 3 minutes and 19 seconds to go. Minnesota down 5-3. And this will be a bitter one for them to look back on if things don't change. They led 3-0. Had this one in their back pocket in the first 10 minutes of the first period. And it just totally slipped back the other way. Offside called on the North Stars.
The North Stars just aren't having any success getting into the Blackhawks end zone. The Blackhawks are thinking defensive hockey right now and have got them lined up, stacked up at the blue line.
Adam Creighton coasted over past the North Stars bench after that last whistle and exchanged words with a few of the North Stars. And he continues to do so as he's escorted over towards the Blackhawks bench.
Adam Creighton was the third most penalized player for the Blackhawks this season. A lot of people think of him as a gentlemanly player. 224 penalty minutes doesn't put you in the category of a gentlemanly player. Big, strong hockey player that plays center ice are looked for by every NHL team.
The North Stars don't have a lot of size at the middle. Modano giving them a little bit, but that is perhaps one of their weaknesses.
That's what, Paul, we thought was going to be their major weakness coming into this series, and yet in game number 1, Broughton and Gagne and, well, really they just went with the three of them. Modano really controlled the center ice for the Chicago Blackhawks. But yet tonight, the second and third periods have shown a different story.
Oh, you know what Paget thinks of all of this. High sticking penalty called on the Minnesota North Stars' Larry Murphy. And he gets 5 minutes for high sticking because he drew blood on Adam Creighton. You saw that little cut that he had on the bridge of his nose. And that evidently caused by Murphy.
Well, they're going to get another penalty, I believe. I think they're going to get a bench minor now.
And that will about puncture any remaining hopes the North Stars had.
Let's watch and see how it happened, first of all. See Creighton comes, he came in, and you could see Murphy's stick was up too high to protect himself, maybe. But Adam got it right in the face.
Again, that's another one of those situations where I think with this drawing blood 5-minute rule, it's got to be made a discretion call by the referee. Because a situation like that, the stick was not brought up with intent. Cuts happen in collisions in a fast sport like hockey, and you see so many times.
But it is a discretionary call. Unfortunately, as soon as blood is drawn, then that more times than not gets you the gate. But right now, the North Stars...
Is it not in the rule book, though, that if blood is drawn, you have to call 5 minutes? There's no discretionary circumstances there at all.
Well, we can go back to the battles then of last year and whether or not blood capsules and everything else were utilized in order to draw blood, and I think that's where the discretionary part comes into it. That 2-minute minor that has been assessed to the North Stars have now put them in such a hole that I doubt whether or not they're going to be able to get that extra goal in order to be able to come within one of the Hawks.
Murphy gets 5 minutes in the game for drawing blood on the high stick, and the North Stars pick up an additional bench minor. So Chicago will finish up this game in style right now with a 2-man advantage and a 2-goal lead with 2:35 to go. Denny Savard, top of the slot, shoots. That goes off a skate and wide. Here's Greg Gilbert. Back to Doug Wilson. Wilson shoots. Gilbert. Back to Wilson again. To Murray. Shooting. Casey the stop.
Gilbert was right there. He tried to get his stick on it, but Musil, who's done a good job defensively for the North Stars, took his opportunity away.
They're at a two-man disadvantage. Chicago with the power play, 2:15 to go. Here's Doug Wilson with that tremendous shot if they can tee him up for it. Roenick shoots. That one was singing towards the top corner, and Casey waved it away. Less than 2 minutes to go in the hockey game. 5-3 Chicago leading. 50 seconds, 5-0 to go in the two-man advantage for the Hawks, and the Hawks caught in the offside.
Presley just took his skate off that blue line at the last second and created the offside. Going to be trying that much harder because they should have a good turnout to watch this Chicago Blackhawk series.
That will be really interesting to see what kind of a turnout they get there in the way of crowds, because they have struggled this year at the gate. The fans very cynical towards the North Stars because of the talk of moving the franchise and so on.
Well, if they don't sell out these next two games after the way their team's played, I'm not sure they deserve a franchise.
Here's Murray to Brown, shoots up around the boards and out. Manson up ahead. Sutter poking at it, comes back outside the blue line. 1:05 to go in the hockey game. Hawks up 5-3.
1 minute to play in the third period.
And they will finish this game on the power play. Now a one-man advantage for the remainder of the hockey game. Here's Musil up around the boards. Larmer knocks it down. Gaetan Duchesne stuck to him. Murray backing up and shooting is Savard, and Casey pulls it out.
Well, with these penalties right now, Casey's getting just what he doesn't need, more work.
Let's see what else is going on as this game winds down.
If you were in a hockey poll, I'll bet Joe Nieuwendyk went #1. Didn't have a...
Against the Blackhawks this year in 8 starts. That's counting playoffs.
More than half the fans have left Chicago Stadium. Confident fans. And besides that, it's Friday night in Chicago. They're going up to celebrate.
And I'm sure the Blackhawks will be joining them shortly as time ticks down in this one. 20 seconds left. And Casey hesitating on whether or not to head to the bench. The Hawks are just going to kill it off in their own end. Casey stays put. And let's let the fans count it down for you. The Hawks are back into it, evening the series at 1 game apiece with a 5-3 come-from-behind victory over Minnesota.
Mike Keenan got the job done, but he went over to congratulate Ed Belfour, who got the job done even more so for the Blackhawks when he was called upon in the first period.
The North Stars jumped out to a 3-0 lead, Gary, about halfway through the first, and the Hawks, to their credit, really digging down and showing some character.
It's a tremendous building, and with the Blackhawks down like they were, to come back, it just adds to the great intensity in this building.
Here's Jim Van Horn.
Certainly, gentlemen, I think you'll have to agree. You have to give a lot of credit to Ed Belfour of the Chicago Blackhawks as well. He came in after the Blackhawks fell behind 3-0. Was not tested severely until the late stages of the second period. Had to come up with a number of big saves in the third period and helped to preserve the win for the Chicago Blackhawks. So the series is tied at 1-1, and they now go back to Bloomington, Minnesota. We'll be back with more after this.
The third power. He can be anywhere. The second power. He can be anyone. The first power. See you around, buddy boy. Immortality.
You can't go on killing forever.
You wanna bet it? Lou Diamond Phillips. Tracy Griffin. The first power.
Now playing at theaters everywhere. Check your local listings.
You know, Thrifty Car Rental has variety for everyone.
I can rent a new car from Thrifty and save money, money, money. Oh, yeah.
For a limited time with a Canadian Airlines flight segment, earn 1,000 Canadian Plus points with any Thrifty rental like this luxurious Chrysler 5th Avenue.
Thrifty, a lot of car rental company. For incredibly little. Call 1-800-for-cars and away you go!
Daddy,
Mister.
is there cholesterol in these French fries?
Is what?
You know, cholesterol.
Oh, you mean cholesterol?
Well?
No, honey. These are McCain Super Fries. They're cholesterol-free. Want some?
Play so well and can figure out where somebody's going to pass it. He did that a couple of times and got the puck down the ice for Calgary.
A minute 53 remaining now in that double minor against Rick Netris. Rudy off the boards, up to Rob Blake. And up ahead it goes to Ellick. On the left side to Dave Taylor. And behind the goal to Ellick. Ellick to Taylor, scores!
The game of hockey, as we mentioned in the opening, is a game of momentum. Calgary did a great job in killing off a portion of the 5-on-3, but Los Angeles keeps on the pressure. Now they've got the momentum. Vernon with not much chance on that when McCrimmon made a decision to chase the puck behind the net, and a perfect pass and a great shot has put Los Angeles up